The universe, in its grand and infinite wisdom, had entered the post-expansion era. This was the term diplomats used, a polite veneer painted over a fractured cosmos. Humanity, bundled into the ambitious Terran Union, had pushed its borders to the very edge of explored space, only to find the neighbors decidedly unwelcoming. Chief among them was the Valkyrie Dominion. They were not monsters. They were warriors, architects of impossible structures, and slaves to an honor code that baffled the most astute Terran analysts. Their entire civilization was built on a single, terrifying premise: the great law of abstinence. No Valkyrie ever touched another, not in greeting, not in comfort, not even in the throes of combat if it could be avoided. Centuries prior, a rival species had engineered the touch plague, a biological weapon so devastating it was transmitted by the merest brush of skin, rewriting Valkyrie DNA into screaming, suicidal madness. It had annihilated a generation. The Valkyrie had survived by excising the concept of touch from their culture. They became a people of armor, of sterile distance, and of profound aching loneliness, though they would never have called it that. They called it purity. They called it strength. Targas Prime was the heart of this strength. It was less a planet, and more a monument to defiance, a fortress citadel that orbited a binary star, bathing its obsidian towers in the twin light of its silver-blue moons. The very air was filtered, scrubbed, and sanctified. Into this fortress came Ethan Vale. His official title on the diplomatic manifest was Cultural Liaison, a term so bland it was offensive. The other delegates, stiff in their Terran Union finery, believed it. They saw a man in his late 30s, with a disarming, almost lazy smile, and eyes that seemed to track conversations 3 steps ahead. They saw a scholar. They did not see the strategist. They did not see the shadow operator whose mind worked on a different axis from their own. Ethan possessed, or perhaps was possessed by, the mnemonic lattice. It was not magic. It was a quirk of biology, a hyperdense neural network that processed memory, not as recall, but as pattern. He saw the echoes of past events, the predictive ripples of future ones, the way a master musician hears the structure of a symphony before the first note is played. And he did not see Targus Prime as a diplomatic challenge. He saw it as a target. His true mission had nothing to do with trade routes or censor treaties. 15 years ago, Erebus Station, his home, a thriving community of 10,000 souls, had been purged. The official Terran report, classified but leaked, blamed a Valkyrie fleet testing a new weapon. Ethan, a teenager then, had been off-world. He remembered his parents' last message. The lattice remembered every scream, every fragmented data burst, and the patterns did not align. He was here to find the truth. He was here to find who truly gave the order that vaporized his world. And he would use the full weight of the Terran Union to do it, even if the Union itself did not know it was being used. The Royal Spireport on Targus Prime was a cathedral of silence. The Terran delegation walked on magnetically guided pathways, their boots never touching the hallowed ground. They were flanked by the Empress's honor guard, 8-foot-tall figures in armor of bone-white bioceramic. Their helmets were featureless, save for a single, vertical slit of glowing blue optics. At the end of the vast reception hall stood the throne, and before it, the reception party. High Marshal Dravak was impossible to miss. He was older, his face a roadmap of ritual scars, one cybernetic eye glowing a dull, menacing red. He was the leader of the purest faction, the voice of the great law. His disdain for the Terran delegation was not hidden. It was a physical force, radiating from him like a cold front. He stood immobile, his armored hands clasped behind his back, a living statue of xenophobic hatred. And then there was her, Empress Carathal. She was young, perhaps no older than 25 in Terran years. She wore the Imperial battle armor, a masterpiece of interlocking plates and energy fields. But her helmet was retracted. Her face was stern, beautiful in the severe, sculpted way of her people, with sharp cheekbones and eyes, the exact color of the twin moons above. She was a warrior queen, born in the shadow of the plague, and bound by an honor code that demanded she greet the very species she was taught to mistrust. Her burden was visible, a tangible weight upon her shoulders. The ceremony proceeded with agonizing precision. Speeches were made by automated heralds. Data slates were presented via hovering drones. No one moved within 10 feet of another. Ethan watched, his mnemonic lattice sifting through the protocols, the subtle shifts in the guard's stances, the fractional drop in Dravak's tone when he was forced to welcome them. The tension was exquisite, a finely tuned wire humming at a frequency just below hearing. The delegation was being ushered toward the transport conduit that would take them to their quarters. It required a transition across a null gravity threshold, a brief passage from the Spireport's heavy, artificial gravity to the transport's own internal field. It was a routine procedure, executed thousands of times a day. This time, it failed. A technician would later be vaporized for failing to account for a 0.01% solar flare-induced energy fluctuation. For Ethan, it was a sudden, sickening lurch. The world tilted. The magnetic grip on their boots failed. The entire Terran delegation, trained for zero gravity but not this gravity, flailed. Men and women in dress uniforms became a clumsy, colliding mass of limbs. The Valkyrie Honor Guard, anchored by their heavier armor and training, remained steadfast. All save one. Empress Carathal, lighter than her guards, was pitched forward. Ethan, his reflexes honed by a life of expecting the unexpected, reacted instantly. He did not try to grab a rail. He saw the pattern, the trajectory of the Empress, the hard bulkhead behind her, the unyielding mass of High Marshal Dravak to her side. He moved to intercept, cushion, and stabilize the situation. He was aiming for the armored pauldron of her shoulder. He miscalculated. The lurch was more violent than he anticipated. She twisted. His hand, reaching out, found an opening. A gap in the intricate bioceramic plating, right where the gauntlet met the vambrace. A joint designed for maximum flexibility. His bare hand, warm and human, slapped against the bare skin of her wrist. The universe ended. There was no sound, no scream, no explosion. There was only a silence so profound, so absolute, that it became a physical pressure. The bustling noise of the Spireport, the hum of engines, the whisper of ventilation, the electronic chatter, all of it vanished, sucked into the vacuum created by that single, impossible point of contact. Ethan froze. He could feel the pulse beneath her skin, a rapid, frantic thunder. He felt the impossible, forbidden warmth of her. Her skin was golden-hued, marked with a faint, silvery scar. He had touched the untouchable. He had brought the plague to the temple's heart. His gaze snapped up from their joined hands to her face. Kara's eyes were wide, not with fear, but with a galaxy of pure, unadulterated shock. It was a chemical reaction, a fundamental law of physics being violated before her eyes. The silence broke. It was not a shout. It was the sound of 20 plasma blades igniting at once, a sibilant, tearing shingthwump that flooded the air with the smell of ozone. The blue light of the Honor Guard's weapons cast jagged shadows across the hall. The Terran delegation was pressed flat against the far wall, hands raised, their faces pale with terror. High Marshal Dravak's face was a mask of apocalyptic fury. His voice was not a shout. It was a low, grinding rumble, the sound of tectonic plates shifting. "He is unclean," Dravak hissed, his cybernetic eye flaring to a brilliant, bloody red. "He bears the plague. He has defiled the Empress. The old law is clear. Life is forfeit. Execute him. The guards advanced, a wall of white armor and blue fire. Ethan did not move. He did not break contact. To do so would be to admit guilt. His mnemonic lattice was not screaming. It was singing. In this moment of absolute catastrophe, he saw the patterns diverge. A billion futures, narrowing to this one. Single point. He saw the shape of an opportunity so vast, it terrified him. No. The voice was not loud. It was clear, cold, and absolute. Empress Carathal had not moved. Her wrist was still in his grasp. "Hold!" she commanded. The guards stopped. Their blades hummed, but they did not advance. Dravak turned his furious gaze upon her. "Empress, he has. I am aware of what he has done. High Marshal," she said. Her voice, trembling with a tightly controlled resonance. She slowly, deliberately, pulled her wrist from Ethan's hand. The separation was its own kind of violence, a tearing of the air. She stared at the spot on her wrist where he had touched her, a faint red mark on her golden skin. She looked at it, not with disgust, but with a kind of burning, scientific curiosity. Then, her eyes, the color of the twin moons, lifted to meet Ethan's. "The law demands a life," Dravak pressed, sensing a weakness. "The law demands justice," Kara countered, her voice hardening. "And justice requires understanding. The old law also grants the Empress a boon of inquiry. I will know his motive." A collective gasp, unheard, passed through the Valkyrie. An inquiry of motive for a plague-bearer. It was unprecedented. It was madness. Ethan finally lowered his hand. He gave a short, formal bow. "My apologies, Empress. A failure in the station's gravity compensation. The synchronization was off by at least 0.3%. Dravak lunged, his armored hand seizing the front of Ethan's uniform. "You will not speak, off-worlder. You will kneel. You will beg for the life you have." "I will not." Ethan's voice was quiet, but it cut through Dravak's rage like a scalpel. He met the High Marshal's gaze, his one red eye and one granite one, without flinching. "Let him go, Marshal!" Kara ordered, reluctantly. Dravak released him, shoving him back. "Kneel!" Dravak commanded again. "Show penitence for your crime." Ethan brushed the front of his uniform smooth. He felt the memory of Erebus rise in him, the ghosts of 10,000 voices. He looked past Dravak, directly at the Empress. "I will apologize for the technical failure. I will submit to your inquiry. But I will not kneel." "It is our custom," Dravak roared. "It is not mine," Ethan said, his voice ringing with a sudden, strange authority. He gave her that disarming, lazy smile, but his eyes were steel. "I came to build bridges, Empress, not to kneel on them." The statement hung in the air. It was part apology, part defiance, and part, astoundingly, humor. A dry, suicidal wit. He heard one of the honor guards make a sound, a choked-off snort. The sheer audacity of the human was, in its own way, a form of honor. They respected strength, and this, in its own insane way, was strength. Kara's lips thinned. That flicker of curiosity in her eyes became a banked fire. She had been presented with a plague-bearer. Instead, she found a puzzle. "You are a risk, Ethan Vale," she said, his name rolling off her tongue with a strange, foreign elegance. "A contamination. But you are now an object of royal study." She motioned to a lesser aide, who scurried forward with a cylindrical device. "High Marshal Dravak, you will have your justice," she announced. "But it will be my justice." She took the device. "The human delegation will be confined to their quarters, under guard, until this inquiry is complete. But you are different. You will not be confined. You will be leashed. She aimed the device at Ethan's head. You have forced my hand. You will now serve as the official, and only, liaison between the Terran Union and the Valkyrie Crown. You will be my link to your people. A bridge, as you say. She pressed the activator. A beam of pale blue light shot from the cylinder and struck Ethan's right temple. He grunted, a sharp, stinging pain, like a hornet. He raised his hand to his head. A glowing, intricate sigil, the mark of the Empress herself, was now branded on his skin. It was an optical tag, a high-priority clearance, and a tracking beacon all in one. By this mark, Kara declared, her voice ringing through the hall. The Crown claims you. No Valkyrie shall harm you. No Valkyrie shall touch you. You are granted immunity from the very law you have broken. But you will not leave my sight. You will be watched. Every word, every breath. She turned, her armor clicking, and swept from the hall. Her honor guard forming a perimeter around her. Dravak gave Ethan one last glance. A look of such profound hatred, it was almost beautiful in its purity. You have signed your own death warrant, human. The Empress is young. She will learn, and I will be waiting. He, too, was gone. Ethan was left alone in the vast, silent hall, save for two guards who stood by the far exit, their plasma blades still lit. He touched the sigil on his temple. It was warm. His gilded cage. He had come to Targus Prime seeking a ghost. He had touched a goddess. And in doing so, he had become the single most important, and most endangered, human in the Valkyrie Dominion. Later, in the opulent, sterile quarters that were his prison, the sigil on his temple itching, he stood before the window. The twin silver-blue moons of Targus Prime stared back at him, his private, encrypted terminal, smuggled in as part of his cultural liaison kit, chimed. He activated it. Two messages had arrived simultaneously. The first was a fragmented data packet, routed through 6 dead drop servers. It was unintelligible noise to anyone else. But his mnemonic lattice instantly saw the pattern. It was a Valkyrie military signal, but corrupted, wrong. It was an echo, originating from the disputed borderlands, the same borderlands that Erebus Station had once patrolled. The second message was a public broadcast from the Terran Union News Network. He watched, cold, as a grim-faced anchor reported the breaking news, citing a catastrophic breakdown in diplomatic protocols and an imminent threat to the Terran delegation on Targus Prime. Sources within the Admiralty have confirmed that Admiral Rourke Ashford's Fifth Fleet is accelerating its timetable. The fleet is now on a direct vector to stabilize the sector and ensure the safety of our citizens. The pieces clicked into place. The board was set. He was trapped, marked, and disavowed, caught between a xenophobic marshal, a curious young empress, and a Terran admiral who seemed intent on starting the very war Ethan had come to prevent. Peace was a fragile, dying thing, caught in the pincers of two empires, and he was right of center. Well, Ethan Vale murmured to his reflection in the star-dusted glass, this complicates things. Ethan Vale's new life was one of profound, gilded isolation. He was an inmate with a palace view. The sigil on his temple, the Empress's mark, was a passport to anywhere and a shackle to everywhere. He was untouchable, not in the Valkyrie way, but in the Terran sense a piece of diplomatic property too volatile to handle. His leash, as Kara had called it, led to the memory locus. It was not a library. It was a cognitive cathedral. The walls were woven light, displaying constellations of data that shifted with the atmospheric pressure. The books were resonant crystals, each containing the memories and histories of the Valkyrie, accessible only by a combination of vocal query and genetic signature. It was the safest and most sacred archive in the Dominion. And Ethan was, for all intents and purposes, its chief prisoner librarian. He was not, however, entirely alone. After 3 days of solitary analysis, during which his mnemonic lattice absorbed Valkyrie linguistic roots at a terrifying rate, the Empress had granted a concession to the Terran delegation. 2 of his compatriots were permitted to join him, under the same terms of house arrest. Captain Nadia Brooks was the first to arrive. She was the delegation's head of security, a woman who seemed to be composed entirely of right angles and regulations. She was not happy. "Vale," she said, her voice a flat, hard line. She did not salute. She was off duty. And this was no military operation. It was a fiasco. "My team is confined to quarters. The ambassador is filing protests by the hour, which I'm fairly certain the Valkyrie are using for toilet paper. And you're in here browsing." "Good to see you too, Nadia," Ethan said, not looking up from a shimmering display of Valkyrie battle formations. "Don't touch the blue crystals. They're sensitive." "I'm not here to touch anything. I'm here to secure the liaison, which means I sit in that chair." She pointed to a hard, obsidian bench, and looked menacing. "This is a diplomatic catastrophe." "Is it?" Ethan mused. We're past the firewall. They're terrified of us, and now they're curious. That's a start." "You call this a start? You touched the Empress. You broke their one, single, capital letter law. They should have spaced you." "They thought about it," Ethan agreed cheerfully. "Dravak certainly did. But the Empress, she's a puzzle." The second arrival was Dr. Mira Kouris, the delegation's chief anthropologist. She entered the locus not with Nadia's rigid fury, but with a kind of breathless, terrified awe. She was a small woman with wide, intelligent eyes that were currently darting from the light walls to the crystal shelves. "My gods, Ethan," she whispered, her hands clasped tightly. "Do you know what this is? This is the locus. No off-worlder has ever been permitted inside. This is like letting a caveman into the Vatican. No offense." "None taken, Mira," Ethan said. "Welcome to the Gilded Cage. Try to keep Nadia from shooting anything." "I make no promises," Nadia grunted from her bench. Their work began. Nadia secured the perimeter, running silent scans, checking exits, and generally radiating an aura of profound disapproval. Mira, with Ethan's guidance, began the delicate, non-invasive process of asking the locus questions. She was the scholar, the bridge of genuine curiosity. Ethan was the strategist. He was not looking for history. He was looking for weaknesses. He was looking for patterns. He was looking for Erebus. But the locus was old. Erebus was a whisper from 15 years ago. The locus held secrets from 15 millennia. On the 5th day, Empress Kara Thal entered the locus alone. Nadia snapped to her feet, her hand instinctively moving to a sidearm that was no longer there. Mira Kouris simply stopped breathing. Kara wore no battle armor. She was dressed in a simple, high-collared tunic of black fiber, belted at the waist. Without the armor, she seemed slighter, younger, but no less imposing. Her presence seemed to absorb the room's light. She ignored the other 2 humans. Her eyes, the color of the twin moons, were fixed on Ethan. "Your mark grants you access to our public history," she stated. Her voice was soft but echoed in the vast space. "It does not grant you access to our soul. You seek patterns. You seek the truth of your Erebus. You will not find it here." "Then where, Empress?" Ethan asked, rising to his feet. He maintained the requisite 10-foot distance. "The locus is our mind," Kara said. "But what you need to see is our scar." She turned and walked toward a section of the locus that was dark, a void in the constellations of light. She placed her ungauntleted hand against a panel of black stone. "The Terran delegation is a threat. Admiral Ashford's fleet is a threat. Your very presence is a violation. Dravak believes you are a weapon. I am reserving judgment. But if you are to be my liaison, you will understand why we are what we are." The wall dissolved, revealing a passage. "You, Ethan Vale. The others will remain?" Nadia stepped forward. "I cannot let him go alone. Empress, my orders." "Your orders are irrelevant here, Captain," Kara said, not looking back. "He is marked. He is my property to protect or destroy. He will not be harmed." "Not yet." Ethan glanced at Nadia. "It's all right, Captain. It's an inquiry. Remember, how many bodyguards does a librarian need? Do not mock this human." Kara's voice was sharp. "I wouldn't dream of it," Ethan said, and followed her into the dark. The passage led down, deep into the bedrock of the citadel. The air grew colder, stiller. It ended in a vault, a perfect sphere. When the door sealed behind them, the room lit up, not with the warm light of the locus, but with a cold, sickly, green-white glow. "This is the Sorrow Archive," Kara said. "It is uncatalogued by the locus. It is preserved as it was. This is our great shame. This is the touch plague." The walls were not walls. They were holographic emitters, but of a kind Ethan had never seen. They were not projections. They felt real. The scene unfolding around them was not a battle. It was a charnel house. He saw Valkyrie, centuries ago, in robes, not armor. He saw a city of graceful spires, not a fortress. He saw them greeting one another, families, children, clasping hands, embracing. It was a world he could not reconcile with the Targas Prime above. Then, the plague. It began with a single handshake, a diplomatic gesture from a new species, the long-extinct Signian, a gift. The Signian's hand left a faint, oily residue. The Valkyrie, who had received the greeting, a High Chancellor, stopped. He looked at his hand. He began to tremble. Then he began to scream. He tore at his own face, his nails digging furrows in his skin. He did not stop screaming until he had ripped his own throat out. But he had touched others, his guards, his aides. They, in turn, touched their families. The archive showed it all in merciless, unedited fidelity. It was a biological weapon that did not kill. It turned the Valkyrie body's own bioelectric field into a self-destruct mechanism. The simple, biochemical trigger of another's touch sent a cascade of neural fire that resulted in complete, agonizing, suicidal madness. It was not a plague. It was a curse. It burned through our worlds in less than a year. Kara's voice was a dead monotone. She had seen this before. She lived this. 90%. An entire generation. Every child under the age of 10. Every elder, gone. We survived because a few of us, in deep space posts, were isolated. We survived by enacting the great law of abstinence. We rebuilt our entire society on one principle: touch is death. She turned to him. Her face, a mask of iron control. Your Admiral Ashford believes we are barbarians, hiding our weapons. Your Dr. Kouris believes we are a fascinating cultural aberration. Your Captain Brooks believes we are a tactical problem. They are all wrong. We are survivors of the apocalypse. We are damned children. And you, with your careless human hand, brought the memory of that fire back into the heart of this citadel. Ethan's mnemonic lattice was screaming. It was not absorbing data. It was absorbing trauma. He felt the echo of the screams. He saw the pattern of their pain. And he saw, with chilling clarity, the connection to his own. "Erebus," he said, his voice hoarse. "What Erebus station? It wasn't a plague. It was a weapon, an energy signature that unmade it. But the result was the same. A generation gone. 10,000 souls. Wiped out." He looked at her, and for the first time, she was not an Empress, not a Valkyrie. She was a reflection. You hide from the touch that killed you. I am hunting the shadow that killed mine. A long silence filled the vault. Your grief is your own, Kara said finally, her voice softer. But it does not compare. Your species did not have to break itself to survive. No, Ethan agreed. We just build bigger fleets. We find someone else to blame. He looked at the wall, at the image of the first victim. This is why you are who you are. This is why Dravak would have killed me in a heartbeat. Dravak lost his bonded pair and 3 children in a secondary outbreak 50 years ago, Kara said. His hatred of the outside is pure. It is what keeps us safe. Is it? Ethan turned to her. Or is it just keeping you isolated? This plague was a weapon. What if there's a defense? Kara's eyes narrowed. There is no defense, only abstinence. That's not a defense, that's a prison, Ethan said, his mind racing. The lattice was forging connections, pulling from theoretical physics he had studied, from biological data Mira had been gathering. You're a warrior race. You use energy shields on your ships. You use personal defense fields in combat. Why haven't you applied it to this? Applied what you cannot shield against your own skin? No, Ethan said, the idea blooming, raw, and dangerous. But you could project a field, a skin field, an epidermal-level force field, calibrated to the micromillimeter, just thick enough to block particulate matter, to block the transfer of biologicals, a field that would allow you to touch safely. She recoiled, not in fear, in visceral, absolute disgust. Blasphemy, she whispered. Is it? Ethan pressed, taking a step toward her, forcing himself to stop at the 10-foot line. Or is it evolution? You're stagnant, Empress. You're hiding from a ghost. What if you could have both your safety and your connection? What if you could touch your own people again, without armor, without fear? It is not possible. Theoretically, it is. Your own shield technology is almost there. It just needs refinement, calibration, a human touch, if you'll pardon the pun. I will not, she snapped. This conversation is over. You have seen our scar. Now you will... Help me, Ethan said. Let me work with Dr. Kouris. Secretly. We have a theory. You have the technology. Let us try. To what end? So you can hold hands. The word was a sneer. To what end? To show your people that the past does not have to be a death sentence. To show Dravak that there's another way. To show my people that you're not monsters to be feared, but people who can be touched. She stared at him, her chest rising and falling. He had struck a nerve, deeper than he knew. He was offering her the one thing she had never been allowed to dream of, an end to the law. If I did this, if I even considered this, and Dravak learned of it, he would call you a heretic. He would have you deposed, I know. You know nothing human, she hissed. You see one archive and you think you understand my burden. I see a queen, Ethan said quietly, who is carrying the weight of an apocalypse on her shoulders. I'm just offering to help you set it down. Her hands were clenched at her sides. I will consider your blasphemy, but your time may be running out. Dravak does not sit idle. You embarrassed him in the Spireport. He will not allow that to stand. She turned and left the vault, leaving him alone with the screaming ghosts. She was right. The summons came 2 days later. It was not a quiet meeting. It was a formal, terrifying proclamation. The honor guard marched Ethan, flanked by Nadia and Mira, into the Hall of Judgment. It was a vast, open-air amphitheater, carved from the Black Mountain itself, under the light of the twin moons. Hundreds of Valkyrie nobles, clad in armor and dark silks, watched from the tiered seats. High Marshal Dravak stood on the central dais, a long, electrified judgment staff in his hand. Ethan Vale of the Terran Union, Dravak's voice boomed, amplified by the arena's acoustics. You stand accused of ritual violation, contamination of a sacred space, and endangering the life of the Empress. You have broken the great law. Nadia leaned in, whispering to Ethan, "This is a trial. They're going to sentence you? Say nothing." Ethan just watched, his lattice absorbing the crowd, the legal terminology, the cold fury in Dravak's red eye. The Empress, in her youthful compassion, granted you an inquiry of motive. Dravak continued, his voice dripping with condescension. That inquiry is now concluded. Your motive is clear arrogance, contempt, the typical poison of the off-worlder. The law demands a life, but the Empress has interceded. She will not have your life. Not yet. A low murmur rippled through the crowd. In her place, Dravak announced, I will convene this tribunal of honor. You will not be executed. You will be tested. You will be given a chance to atone for your crime against our people. A trial by deeds. This was new. Ethan glanced at Mira, who looked confused. That's not in any of the public records, she whispered. He's making it up as he goes, Ethan murmured back. Not entirely, a voice said. Empress Kara entered the arena, descending the main steps. She was back in her full battle armor. She looked like a goddess of war. High Marshal, she said, her voice a sharp counterpoint to his. You convene this tribunal, as is your right, but you forget the text. The aegis of exception is not a punishment. It is a quest for redemption. Dravak stiffened. Empress, this is a legal matter. It is a matter of honor, she corrected, stepping onto the dais, careful to keep her distance from both Dravak and Ethan. Humans have broken our most sacred law. He must now, according to the full text of the old law, be used to mend our most sacred borders. She turned to the assembly. The High Marshal is correct. The off-worlder has been granted a chance to atone. His first deed is this: we have detected anomalies. Irregular signals on edge of Tenebrous corridor. The same corrupted signals your Terran fleet claims are our aggression. Her gaze fell on Ethan. You are the liaison. You are the bridge builder. You will come with me. You will investigate these signals. You will prove, to this tribunal, whether they are Terran or Valkyrie. Dravak's jaw tightened. This was not the public execution he had planned. He is unclean, a noble shouted from the stands. He is marked, Kara's voice cracked like a whip. He is under my aegis. He will go. He will see. And he will report. And this tribunal, she looked at Dravak, will bear witness to his efforts, or his failure. She had done it. She had taken Dravak's execution and turned it into a mission she would lead. She had used his own law against him, boxing him in with his own honor. Ethan had to admire the move, He was a pawn, but he was a pawn in the Empress's game now, not the Marshal's. I accept the deed, Ethan said, his voice ringing. I will be your eyes. Dravak slammed his staff's butt on the dais. So be it. The Tribunal of Honor is in session. Let the deed begin, and pray to your human gods. Ethan Vale. For if you fail, my justice will be waiting. The Tenebrous corridor was a graveyard of stars, a region of space plagued by gravitic anomalies and unstable dark matter. Their ship, a Valkyrie Spectre-class courier, was fast, silent, and sterile. The crew was a skeleton one Kara, Ethan, and, at Kara's insistence, Captain Nadia Brooks. If he is to be your eyes, Kara had said, you will have your own security. We will have no accidents. The cockpit was tense. Nadia was co-piloting, her face rigid with concentration. Kara was at the primary tactical station. Ethan was strapped into the observer's seat, his mnemonic lattice sifting through the sensor readings. There, Kara said, pointing to a swirl of sensor data. The signals originate from that asteroid field, a known dead zone, perfect for an ambush. Or a false flag operation, Ethan said. You Terrans are obsessed with such things, Kara muttered. Valkyrie are direct. We do not plant evidence. Is that so? Ethan said. My lattice is telling me the signal encryption on those anomalies is Terran. Specifically, it's a Terran naval code. From 15 years ago. Kara's head snapped toward him. Erebus. The same, Ethan said, his voice cold. A Terran fleet, using old codes, planting mines in your own disputed territory to blame us. To give Ashford his war. Kara's logic was swift. It is convoluted. War is messy, Ethan said. We are at the coordinates, Nadia announced, her voice tight. Dropping out of drive. The ship shuddered, and then silence. They were floating in a sea of jagged rock. There, Ethan said, pointing. Visual. Bearing 302. A mine. It was not a sleek Valkyrie weapon. It was a clumsy, powerful Terran gravitic mine, and it was broadcasting the old code. How close? Kara asked. Too close, Nadia said. I'm detecting a cascade. It's not just one. It's a field. And Empress. They're arming. They're responding to our energy signature. Get us out, Kara commanded. I can't, Nadia snapped, her hands flying over the console. The gravitic pull is pulling us in. It's a trap. It's a Terran code. All right, Ethan said. His eyes closed, the lattice working. But it's wrong. The handshake protocol is forged. It's sloppy. This isn't a Terran naval op. It's a mine, Vale, Nadia yelled. It doesn't care about your linguistic analysis, Kara, Ethan said, his voice calm. The frequency. The mine is listening for a Valkyrie energy signature to detonate. It's designed to blame you. But the arming mechanism, it's Terran. Can you feed our shield power into their arming frequency, overload it, create a feedback loop? Kara was already at the console. It is crude, but it is possible. It will draw all power. We will be blind and drifting. Just do it, Ethan said. Kara's fingers flew, diverting power, rerouting energy. The ship groaned. A high-pitched whine filled the cockpit, climbing in frequency until it was beyond hearing. And then, silence. It's done, Nadia breathed, checking her console. The mines are inert. They're just rocks now. Kara slumped in her chair. Your crude human code was the key. You saw the forgery. That's what I do, Ethan said. This wasn't a Terran naval op. This was someone with Terran codes. Someone trying to start a war. Someone who knows both your technology and mine. Helios, Kara whispered. The word was an oath. That night, back on Targus Prime, they stood on the balcony of Kara's private tower. The twin moons, Arcos and Sela, painted the obsidian city in silver and blue. Nadia was 2 floors below. Securing the perimeter, they were, for the first time, truly alone. Helios Directorate, Kara said, her voice flat. The Terran industrial giant. They profit from war. They have long sought our shield technology. And they would start a war to get it, Ethan finished. They'd sacrifice a Terran fleet and a Valkyrie dominion just to improve their stock margins. They'd even destroy a research station, like Erebus. The pieces were falling into place, cold and sharp. Kara looked out at her city. I stand here every night. I look at those moons. Arcos, the warrior. Sela, the watcher. I am supposed to be both, and I feel I am neither. Dravak sees me as a weak, young girl playing Empress. My people see me as a distant, cold icon. And Helios sees me as a customer. Or an obstacle. She turned to him. You carry a great burden, Ethan Vale. a hunt for ghosts. But it is a singular burden. It is yours. I carry the burden of 10 billion souls, all of them waiting for me to fail. All of them are bound by a law that is choking us to death. I know what it's like, Ethan said quietly. To have your world defined by one single event. My parents were on Erebus. My mother was the chief biologist. She believed in connection, in reaching out. She thought the Valkyrie were beautiful. Misunderstood. He looked at her. She would have been fascinated by you, and she would have been furious at this law. Your mother died, Kara stated. It was not a question. Yes, Ethan said. And for 15 years, I have carried that. That hate. That needs an answer. For a target. I thought it was you. Your people. Now I see that you are just as much a victim of this as I am. It was not an absolution. It was not a connection. It was just two separate wounds, exposed in the moonlight, a verbal touching of scars. The next day, Ethan, Mira, and Nadia were in a secure, hidden laboratory deep beneath the locus. Kara had provided it. The theory is sound, Mira was saying, her eyes bright with scientific zeal. A contained, bioresonant energy field. It wouldn't block a bullet, but a microparticle A, single, complex protein chain, absolutely. It's a prototype, Veil, Nadia warned, checking the power couplings. It's unstable, and frankly, it's a stupid risk. Duly noted, Ethan said. He held out his hand. A small, complex device, a hybrid of Terran and Valkyrie tech, was strapped to his forearm. Let's light it up, Mira. I should be the one to... Kara's voice came from the doorway. She had arrived, silently. It is my technology, my risk. No, Ethan said. It's my blasphemy. I'll take the first shock, activate it. Mira nodded and tapped a console. The device on Ethan's arm hummed. A faint, pale blue light, almost invisible, shimmered into existence, encasing his hand like a glove. The skin field is active, Mira breathed. Bio readings are stable. Field integrity, it's fluctuating, but it's holding at 90%. Not bad for a first try, Ethan said, flexing his glowing fingers. Kara stepped forward. She looked at his hand. She looked at her own. She was not wearing gauntlets. This is madness, she whispered. This is progress. Ethan countered. Empress, your hand. She hesitated. This was the moment. This was the true test. More than the tribunal. More than the mines. Slowly, she raised her hand. Ethan raised his. They moved toward each other, the 10-foot gap shrinking, the air crackling with an energy that was more than just the prototype. 9 feet. 5. Nadia held her breath. 1 foot. Their fingers, his glowing blue, hers bare and golden, stretched across the gap. The tips of their fingers were an inch apart. The prototype on Ethan's arm sputtered. The hum became a whine. It's overloading, Mira yelled. The proximity of the biosignatures it can't handle the... A bright, snapping crack filled the room. A brilliant blue spark, thick as a finger, leaped from Ethan's glowing fingertip to hers. Gah! Ethan yelled, yanking his hand back. Kesh! Kara swore, pulling her own hand back, shaking it. The field died. Shut it down, Nadia yelled. Ethan was rubbing his hand. Kara was staring at her fingers, which were tingling. Well, Ethan said, wincing. That was shocking. Nadia glared at him. Not the time. Veil. No, Ethan said. It's exactly the time. He looked at Kara. She was still staring at her hand. And then she did something impossible. Something that broke all protocol. A small, sharp bark of a sound escaped her. It was rusty, unused. She was laughing. It was not a laugh of mirth. It was a laugh of pure, absurd, hysterical shock. "You," she said, trying to regain her composure, a small, dangerous smile playing on her lips. You electrified me. Human." "I try," Ethan said, smiling back. The moment of levity, of impossible connection, was shattered. A Valkyrie honor guard, one of Kara's personal cadre, burst into the lab. He was clad in black armor. He ignored the humans, dropping to one knee before Kara. "Empress, an urgent, decoded dispatch. For your eyes only." Kara's smile vanished. She was the Empress again. She took the data slate. She read it. Her face, which had for a second been alive with humor, turned to stone. The blood drained from it. "What is it?" Ethan asked. She held the slate out. He took it. It was a black market auction listing. From the Helios Directorate. The item for sale: 1 crate of damaged but salvageable Valkyrie gravitic mine casings. Acquired from a recent border skirmish. "They're not even hiding it," Mira breathed. "They are bragging," Kara said, her voice a deadly cold whisper. "That's not the worst part," Nadia said, pointing to the bottom of the slate. It was a addendum, a message from High Marshal Dravak's office to the Empress, alerting her to this Terran aggression. "This provocation," Dravak's message concluded, "cannot be ignored. I am, by the power granted me by the Tribunal of Honor, petitioning for a full, system-wide military mobilization. We must prepare for the war these Terrans so clearly desire." The trap had sprung. The data from the mines, the secret auction. Dravak's power play was all one, single, beautiful, terrible maneuver. Kara looked at Ethan, her eyes full of the cold, twin moon light. "Your test," she said, her voice void of all emotion, "is over. The time for sparks is done. The High Marshal is calling for war, and I must answer." The laboratory door did not slide open. It was blown from its hinges, a concussive blast that sent fragments of the wall screaming inward. "Kesh," Kara swore, her hand instinctively flying to a sidearm that her formal tunic lacked. Nadia Brooks was already moving. "Mira, secure the data veil. Get behind me." Through the smoking doorway stepped High Marshal Dravak, his red cybernetic eye burning. He was not in his formal court armor. He was clad in the gunmetal gray, unadorned plate of the Steel Guard, his personal enforcers. They flooded the room behind him, their plasma rifles leveled. "This," Dravak boomed, his voice a low-frequency rumble, "is the infection." "Dravak," Kara commanded, stepping forward, her fury a tangible shield. "You dare assault my personal laboratory? This is treason." "This is salvation, Empress," Dravak snarled. He pointed an armored finger, not at Ethan, but at her. "You are compromised. The human's words have poisoned your mind. His presence electrifies your body." Kara's blood ran cold. He had been watching. "You are relieved of command," Dravak declared. "You do not have that authority," Kara shot back. "I do," he roared, and the force of his voice silenced the room. "By the power of the ancestral mandate, in a time of dire threat, the High Marshal may enact the Steel Condition, a state of martial law to preserve the purity of our people from contamination, internal or external." He looked at Kara, his one good eye filled with a fanatic's pity. "You are the internal threat, Kyra Thal. Your compassion is a sickness. You will be taken to the Tower of Vigilance, to be cleansed and protected from yourself." "This is a coup," Nadia yelled, finally pulling her own sidearm from a hidden ankle holster. "This is a purge," Dravak corrected. He nodded to his guards. "Take the Empress, detain her staff, and execute the human, the source of the plague." The Steel Guard advanced. Nadia opened fire, her kinetic pistol rounds pinging harmlessly off their heavy armor, a desperate, valiant, and utterly futile gesture. "Mira! Run!" Dr. Mira Kouris was frozen, clutching the data slate containing the skin field research. A guard backhanded Nadia, the armored blow sending her crashing into the console. "No!" Ethan yelled, moving toward her, but two guards leveled their rifles at his chest. "It is over, human," Dravak said, savoring the moment. "Not quite," a new voice said. A figure dropped from a ventilation shaft in the ceiling, landing in a perfect, silent crouch between Ethan and the guards. It was a Valkyrie, young, wearing the light, black fiber weave armor of the Empress's intelligence cadre, the guard who had delivered the news of the Helios auction. "Sable," Kara gasped. "My apologies for the intrusion, Empress." The young Valkyrie, Sable, said, her voice a cool, stylish alto. She unslung a multi-barreled device from her back. "Things are getting terribly unrefined." She fired. It was not a plasma bolt. It was a net of coherent sound, a sonic stunner that hit the two guards closest to Ethan. They dropped, clutching their helmets, their internal comms shrieking. "Dravak, you will pay for this," Kara yelled, as two guards seized her arms, pulling her back. "Ethan Vale," Sable said, not looking at him. "If you wish to live, I suggest you follow me, now." She fired again, covering their retreat. Ethan looked back. Once. He saw Nadia Brooks dragged to her feet, a line of blood trickling from her temple. He saw Dr. Kouris, pale and terrified, surrounded, and he saw Kara, fighting, a warrior queen reduced to a prisoner, her eyes burning with a promise of murder. "Vale!" Sable yelled. He turned and ran. They plunged into a maintenance duct, the hatch hissing shut behind them, cutting off the sounds of the struggle. They were in darkness. "Who the hell are you?" Ethan panted. "Sable. Second-tier attaché, Royal Intelligence, and, as of 5 minutes ago, the leader of a two-person insurrection. Keep up." She led him through a maze of corridors that were not on any public map. They were not running. They were moving quickly, silently, pressing against bulkheads as heavy patrols thundered by above them. "He won't just hold her," Sable murmured, her antenna-like sensors, woven into her light helmet, twitching. "He'll use this. He'll claim she was unfit. He'll take the throne. He's got the Helios auction, the border skirmish. He's got the perfect narrative," Ethan said. His mnemonic lattice was working, absorbing the layout of the tunnels, the timing of the patrols. "He needs a scapegoat," Sable said. "He needs the human plague-bearer. That's you." "I'm flattered. Save your wit. We need to get to the lower city." They emerged into a cavernous, echoing space. It was a vertical chasm, a service conduit for the entire Citadel spire. The only way across was a narrow, exposed maintenance bridge. On the far side, a checkpoint. Steel guard. 3 of them, Sable whispered. "Heavily armed, we can't." "We wait," Ethan said. "They're about to change shifts." "How do you know?" "The one on the left. He's checking his chrono. He's anxious. The one on the right is bored. He's leaning. They're done." As if summoned by his words, a new patrol of 3 emerged from a lift. The two groups began a formal, armored-gloved information exchange. "Now," Ethan said. "They're distracted. Go." They sprinted across the bridge, their soft boots making no sound on the metal grate. "Halt!" One of the guards, the bored one, had spotted them. "So much for your prediction," Sable hissed, drawing her sidearm. "I didn't say it was a good one," Ethan retorted. "I just said they were bored." A plasma bolt shrieked past Ethan's ear, vaporizing a section of the rail. "This way!" Sable yelled, pulling him into a side alley. This was not the sterile, grand architecture of the upper city. This was the underhive, They were in what the locals called Flutter Alley. It was a narrow canyon between fusion conduits, where the walls were plastered with holographic advertisements that fluttered between Terran Standard, Valkyrie High, and 3 other alien languages. The gravity plating here was old, and it fluctuated, making a long stride feel heavy and a short step feel light. "They're coming," Ethan yelled, looking back. "This is not my preferred method of travel," Sable complained, leaping over a steaming vent. "You'd prefer a formal invitation. I'd prefer a sniper rifle and a 1,000-meter vantage point." A patrol dropped from a ledge above, blocking their path. "Dead end," Sable said, raising her weapon. "No," Ethan said, his eyes scanning, the lattice firing. He saw the pattern, the ads, the patrol, the faulty gravity. Wait now!" He grabbed her arm and pulled her toward the patrol. "What are you?" The grav plate is about to cycle, just as the guards leveled their rifles. The plate beneath their feet surged into a high-gravity cycle. The 3 Valkyrie, weighted by their heavy steel armor, suddenly weighed twice as much. Their legs buckled. They clanged to the ground, immobile. The plate under Ethan and Sable, however, cycled to low gravity. "Jump!" Ethan yelled. They leaped, soaring over the heads of the struggling, cursing guards, landing on a rooftop 20 feet above. "How?" Sable panted, staring back at the guards. "How did you know?" "The ad," Ethan said, pointing to a flickering hologram for some kind of synthetic noodle bar. "It's synced to the grav cycle. It flickers 5 seconds before the cycle hits. The one on the right turns blue." Sable stared at him. "You are an incredibly annoying species." "We try," Ethan said. "Where are we going?" "Somewhere Dravak has forgotten. Somewhere unclean." She led him to the lowest levels of the city, to a district that had been sealed off since the touch plague. The air was thick with the smell of ozone and decay. She keyed a code into a rusted, forgotten door. "The Hex Organ Vault," she said. "My ancestors, my great-grandmother, worked here. It was a biomechanical workshop. After the plague, it was sealed. It is considered a cursed place." They entered. It was vast, dark, and filled with the shapes of forgotten, monstrous machines. These were not the sleek biomechs of the current age. These were prototypes, crude, failed experiments. "What was Helios doing here?" Ethan asked. Sable stopped. "How did you know?" "This place is clean," Ethan said, running his hand over a console. "No dust. Someone is still using it. And it's not you." Sable ignited her wrist light. "I suspected. I tracked strange energy signatures here, but I could never get access. Dravak's purge forced my hand." Ethan moved to the central console. It was dead. If this was a Helios lab, they wouldn't use Valkyrie power. They'd bring their own. He scanned the room, his lattice seeking the pattern. He pointed to a panel in the floor. There, Sable pried it open. A Terran-made fusion pack, still humming with 90% power. "Clever," Sable said. Dravak gives them a hidden lab. They provide him with what Ethan powered up the console. It flickered to life, showing the Helios Directorate logo. "They're not just providing him with weapons," Ethan murmured, his fingers flying across the interface, his lattice helping him bypass the human-made encryption. "They're providing him with a boogeyman." The logs came up. They were incomplete, erased, but fragments remained. "Project Edenfall," Ethan read, his voice tight. Sable leaned in. "What is it?" "It's a neural interface," Ethan said, the pieces snapping into place, cold and terrible. "They're not just faking Valkyrie codes. They're faking Valkyrie minds." He brought up a data file. It was a waveform. "This is a forged Valkyrie neural signature. They've been kidnapping Valkyrie, your people, and Sable from the borderlands. They've been scanning their memories, their brain patterns." To what end? Sable whispered, horrified. To create this, Ethan said, pointing to another file. A weaponized signal. A false flag. A Valkyrie aggression so real, so authentic. It could fool anyone. He stopped. He felt the blood drain from his face. He brought up another waveform, pulled from his own mnemonic lattice, from his encrypted file. The last, fragmented data burst from Erebus Station. He overlaid them. They were not similar. They were not close. They were identical. Oh, gods, Ethan breathed. It wasn't a rogue Valkyrie fleet. What? Sable asked. Erebus, he said, his voice choking. My home. The Valkyrie who destroyed it was this. It was Project Edenfall. It was Helios. All along. They used that memory as bait, to frame your people. To start the war 15 years ago. He had his answer. He had his target. And it was 1,000 times worse than he had ever imagined. The console beeped. An incoming broadcast. Dravak. We have to see this, Sable said, patching it through. Dravak's face filled the screen, broadcasting to every terminal in the Dominion. He was on the dais of the Hall of Judgment. Behind him, held by 2 guards, was Kara. She was in chains, her face a mask of cold fury. And so, with a heavy heart, Dravak was saying, his voice resonating with false piety. We have been forced to contain our beloved Empress. The human the plague-bearer has infected her mind. The screen showed a high-resolution image of Ethan. This man, Dravak spat, is not a diplomat. He is a disease. He is the walking embodiment of the Terran plague. They send their fleets to our borders, and they send this to rot us from within. He has corrupted our Empress. He has violated our laws, and he has fled like the coward he is. He's good, Ethan muttered, his fists clenched. He's turning me from an assassin into a psychic virus. He must be found, Dravak declared. For every hour he remains free, our world is in peril. He is the plague made flesh. The broadcast ended. He's sealed the city, Sable said, checking the local network. We're trapped. We have the proof, but we have nowhere to take it. Ethan stared at the blank screen, his mind racing. He saw the board. Dravak had the city, the military, and the narrative. He had Kara. No, Ethan said. He hasn't won. He's made a mistake. What mistake? He just gave me a platform. He just told the entire planet that I am the only thing that matters. He's obsessed with me. He's made this personal. He wants to kill you, Ethan. That's very personal. So we're going to give him the chance, Ethan said. A wild, dangerous idea forming. He's holding a tribunal of honor. Right, he's all about the old law. So let's use it. Use what there's no law for this. There is, Ethan said. Kara mentioned it. A quest for redemption. A trial by deeds. Well, I've done the deed. I found the truth. Now I need to submit it. I'm going to challenge him. The Oath Song duel. Sable stared at him as if he were insane. The Oath Song that's ancient. It hasn't been used in 1,000 years. It's a dual challenge, of logic and combat. You're going to challenge the High Marshal, the greatest warrior on the planet. I'm not going to challenge him as a warrior, Ethan said. I'm going to challenge him as the plague bearer. I'm going to challenge his logic. And when he gets angry, I'm going to dodge. You are insane. It's the only move he won't see coming. It's the one thing his strategy doesn't account for. It's a very human thing to do. He turned to her. Can you get us and this data to the Scar-Spire publicly? Sable thought for a long moment. A slow, dangerous smile spread across her face. No, but I can make our arrival very, very loud. The Scar-Spire was the oldest monument on Targus Prime. It was a single, jagged peak of black stone, rumored to be the impact site of the first Cedar ship. It was where the Valkyrie held their most sacred and most brutal judgments. Dravak was there, presiding over the cleansing of the city. Kara was there too, chained to a throne of penitence, forced to watch. And then, the broadcast override hit. Every screen in the amphitheater suddenly flashed from Dravak's face to the Helios logo. "What is this?" Dravak roared. Then, Ethan's face appeared. "High Marshal Dravak," his voice boomed across the spire. "A word, if you please. You've been calling for me." It seemed rude not to answer. A stolen civilian transport, its speakers blasting, descended from the sky. It landed, hard, on the central dais. Ethan Vale walked out, unarmed, dressed in his simple Terran uniform. Sable was behind him, carrying a console. The crowd gasped. The Steel Guard raised their rifles. "Stop!" Dravak commanded. "He wanted this." "The coward returns." "Not a coward, Marshal," Ethan said, walking toward him, stopping a safe 20 feet away. "A petitioner. I am here, before this tribunal of honor, to complete my deed." "Your deed is treason," Dravak spat. "My deed," Ethan said, his voice ringing with a new, cold power, "was to find the truth of the border, the truth of the Helios auction, the truth of Erebus Station." Dravak's red eye flared. "I, Ethan Vale, the human plague, do hereby invoke the old law, the Oath Song duel. I challenge your word," he pointed at Dravak, "and I challenge your steel." The silence that followed was absolute. Kara looked up, her eyes wide with disbelief and a tiny, terrifying spark of hope. "You," Dravak began to laugh, a harsh, grating sound. "Do soft, weak, untouchable things challenge me?" "I challenge your lies," Ethan said, "the logic half of the duel. And my colleague Sable will provide proof. The song, if you will. As for the steel." He looked at the electrified judgment staff in Dravak's hand. "I'm not much of a warrior, Marshal, but I'm betting you're not much of a listener." "You are dead," Dravak hissed, and he activated the staff. It crackled with lethal energy. "You have sealed your own fate." "Then let's get to it," Ethan said. "Sable, the overture." Sable hit the console. The logs from the Hex organ vault splashed across the main screen. "Project Edenfall." "Lies," Dravak roared, and he lunged. He was fast, incredibly fast for a creature his size. But Ethan was not there. His mnemonic lattice had seen the lunge before Dravak's muscles had even tensed. Ethan had dodged. "The project, Marshal," Ethan said, moving backward, "shows Helios scanned the brains of captured Valkyrie to create the very aggression you've been using to stoke this war." Dravak swung the staff in a wide arc. The air sizzled. Ethan dropped, rolling under the strike. It was a third party. Marshal, not Terran, not Valkyrie. It was Helios. They played you. "I am High Marshal," Dravak bellowed, his honor insulted, his movements becoming sloppy with rage. He struck the stone floor. Clang. The sound of the lattice picked it up. A resonance. "They gave you the evidence." Ethan dodged again. "The evidence they manufactured to justify your coup. You infected her." Dravak swung again, harder. Clang. "He's getting angry," Sable muttered, uploading the Erebus data. "That's the point," Ethan said, his voice never rising. "Look at the screen, Marshal. Look at the data from my home. The home you blamed for 15 years. It's the same. They played us both." "Lies," Dravak roared. He brought the staff down, not at Ethan, but at the stone dais. Crrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrr The spire was designed to amplify judgment, and it amplified the sound of Dravak's rage. The feedback hit his own comms. He staggered, clutching his helmet. The logic half, Marshall, Ethan said, standing still, just out of reach. You lose. You are a puppet. Helios is the hand, and I suspect your Admiral Rourke is the other. Dravak, disoriented, blind with rage and sonic feedback, tore his helmet off. His red eye was spinning. He saw Ethan. He saw the truth on the screen. He saw the crowd, their faces turning from adulation to confusion. He saw Kara. And he broke. He charged, not with skill, but with pure, brute force. Ethan stood his ground. "Ethan, move!" Kara screamed. At the last second, Ethan sidestepped and stuck out his foot. Dravak, the greatest warrior of the Valkyrie, tripped over a human's boot. He went sprawling, his armor clattering, skidding to a halt at the feet of Kara's throne of penitence. He lay there, defeated, not by a weapon but by logic, acoustics, and the sheer absurd humiliation of it. The arena was silent. Sable cut the broadcast. Ethan walked over. He looked down at Dravak. Then he looked at Kara. Her guards were gone, melted into the crowd, sensing the shift in power, slightly out of breath. Ethan pulled something from his pocket. It was the skin field device. Sable had helped him repair and upgrade it in the vault. Skin field, version 2. "You said," Ethan panted. It was over. The time for sparks. He strapped it to his forearm. He activated it. A perfect, stable, pale blue field enveloped his hand. No sparks. No whine. Kara's chains had been unlocked by Sable during the duel. She was free. She rose from the throne. She looked at Dravak, defeated. She looked at the crowd, stunned. She looked at his hand. "Ethan," she whispered. "You are safe," he said. "The deed is done. You are rescued." He held out his hand. This was the true test. She stared at the blue glowing hand. The hand that had started it all. The hand that represented the plague, the curse, the death of her people. And now it represents the truth. It represented him, slowly, her own. Bare, golden hand rose. She reached out. Her fingers, trembling, touched the back of his. There was no spark. There was no pain. There was no madness. There was just warmth. The faint pressure of his skin, separated by a field thinner than a hair. She felt the shape of him. It was the first, safe, intentional touch of her entire life. It was awkward. It was terrifying. It was profound. She breathed, her voice catching. "It's warm." "Yes," Ethan said, his own voice thick. "It is." It was a moment of impossible, silent victory. And that was when the sky tore open. Alarms blared across Targus Prime, a sound that had not been heard in a generation. "Warning!" The automated defense system screamed. "Mass FTL jump, detected suborbital vector." It's the Terran Fifth Fleet, dozens of ships, gray, brutalist, and heavily armed, ripped themselves out of warp, parking in a high, menacing orbit. A single, massive transmission overrode everything. The face of Admiral Rourke Ashford, stern, gray-haired, and radiating smug authority, appeared on every screen. "People of Targus Prime," Rourke's voice boomed. "This is Admiral Ashford of the Terran Union. We are here to liberate Empress Karathal from the traitorous tyrant. High Marshal Dravak." He smiled, a cold, thin smile. "We are here as saviors." Ethan looked at the screen. He looked at the defeated Dravak. He looked at the liberated Kara, whose hand was still touching his. Rourke's rescue was a theatrical, perfectly timed, and utterly unnecessary farce. He was not a savior. He was an invader. "He's too late," Sable whispered, horrified. "He was coming anyway." "Kara," Ethan said, his voice deadly calm. "He's not here to save you. He's here to stabilize the sector. He's here for the war Dravak promised him." Kara pulled her hand back, the warmth vanishing, replaced by the cold iron of command. She looked up at the sky, at the fleet of Terran saviors. "Raise the shields," she commanded. "Empress." Her defense commander's voice came over the comm. "They are demanding we stand down. They are powering weapons." The war was here. Ethan looked at the screen. He saw Rourke's face. He saw the Helios logo in his mind. He saw Erebus's identical waveforms. He finally had all the pieces. Rourke, Helios, Dravac, Erebus. It was one, single, 15-year-long conspiracy. He knew it, in his bones, in his mnemonic lattice, but he had no proof. Not yet. "Empress," he said, turning to her, the skin field on his hand flickering, suddenly seeming very, very small. "We have a problem." The sky over Targus Prime was no longer a symbol of peace. It was a ceiling of iron, filled with the gray, brutalist hulls of the Terran Fifth Fleet. Admiral Rourke Ashford's liberation had begun. On the Scar Spire, the moment of impossible connection, Kara's fingers, finding the warm, shielded safety of Ethan's hand, was shattered. The triumphant cheers of the Valkyrie public, having seen Dravac's fall, turned into screams of raw terror. "All non-combatants to the lower-level shelters," Kara's voice, amplified by the spire's acoustics, cut through the panic. She was no longer a woman in chains. She was an empress at war. "Seal the city. Full defense protocols." She turned to the smoking ruins of the broadcast equipment, her eyes finding Sable. "Get him to the Indomitable." She pointed at the still-dazed Dravac. "He is now the single most valuable traitor in the Dominion. Do not let him die. Go." As Sable and her shades hauled the disgraced High Marshal to his feet, Kara's gaze locked with Ethan's. The intimacy of their touch, the shared victory. It was all ash. "So this is his plan," Ethan said, his voice deadly quiet as he stared at the descending fleet. "Not a rescue. An execution." "He timed his salvation perfectly," Kara spat, her mind racing. She was already mentally linked to her flagship, the Indomitable, in high orbit. "He waited for my government to collapse, just as his allies at Helios planned." "People of Targus Prime," Rourke's voice boomed from every speaker, from the heavens themselves. "Your Empress is a captive. Your military is in chaos. We are here to restore order. Power down your weapons. Accept our protection. Any ship that powers its drive will be considered hostile." A Valkyrie destroyer, its captain either brave or foolish, ignited its engines, rising to meet the fleet. On Rourke's flagship, the Resolve. The Admiral did not even flinch. He just sipped his water. "Teach them." His tactical officer, a young, grim-faced man, nodded. "Activate the Koi network. Phase 1. It was not a laser. It was not a missile. It was a sound. A low, groaning, subsonic vibration that started in the teeth and settled in the bones. It rolled across the planet, a wave of pure, weaponized physics. The Valkyrie destroyer that was rising suddenly stopped. Its shields did not flicker. They buckled. The hull, a masterpiece of composite armor, began to twist, to crumple in on itself, as if gripped by an invisible, malicious giant. With a final, silent scream of tortured metal, the ship imploded, collapsing into a dense, misshapen ball of wreckage. "My gods," Nadia Brooks whispered, her hand on her sidearm. Sable's team had freed her during the duel and had just joined them on the dais. "He is crushing them." "That," Kara said, her face pale, her voice shaking with a cold, pure fury, "is our technology, a deep space gravitic resonance system, stolen, perfected. He is not just attacking, he is desecrating." The sound wave hit again, this time wider. 2 more Valkyrie frigates were caught. They were squeezed, their spines snapped, their reactors going critical in a flash of silent, secondary explosions. This was not a battle. This was a slaughter. He's not just crushing them, Ethan said. His eyes were closed. His head was tilted, as if listening to a distant song. The mnemonic lattice was not processing sight. It was processing the vibration, the chaos, the screams. The raw data of the coy weapon was flooding his mind. He's not a bludgeon. It's an instrument. Vale! What are you talking about? Nadia snapped, scanning the sky for the next target. He's tuning them, Ethan murmured, his voice distant. The network, it's not just one signal. It's dozens. They're harmonizing, finding the resonant frequency of each hull and striking it, like a crystal glass. He opened his eyes, and they were sharp, focused. It's a superweapon, yes, but it's a musical one. It has a rhythm, a pattern, a breath. Can you stop it? Kara asked, her link to her fleet feeding her nothing but a litany of agony and loss. No, Ethan said, but I can read it. The signal isn't coming from his ships. They're just the conductors. The orchestra is a series of stations, amplifiers. We take out the amplifiers. Rourke is just a man with a big fleet and no superweapon. He tapped his comm. Mira, where are you? Dr. Mira Chorus's voice, small and terrified, came back. We're in the shuttle. Sable provided we Ethan. The sky is falling. Good, Ethan said. I need you, and I need that Skinfield prototype. The one that sparked. Meet us at the Spectre-class courier. Now. We're going on a little trip. A trip? Nadia looked at him, incredulous. In the middle of this, Rourke controls the sky. He controls the battle, Ethan corrected. He's not paying attention to the noise. And we, my friend, are about to become the most annoying piece of noise he's ever heard. The Spectre, a sleek, black courier ship designed for infiltration, shot from a hidden hangar beneath the Citadel. Sable was at the helm, her fingers dancing over the controls, weaving through the gravitational chaos. In the back, it was a grim, strange reunion. Nadia Brooks, now armed with a Valkyrie plasma rifle, was running diagnostics. This is insane. This is clinically insane. Dr. Mira Chorus was huddled over the Skinfield device, her face pale. And Ethan was sitting across from them, strapping a light combat vest over his rumpled diplomatic uniform. He had a Valkyrie sidearm strapped to his hip, and he looked profoundly uncomfortable. It's simple, Ethan said, his voice tight, the G-forces of Sable's flying pressing him into his seat. My lattice has the map. The Koi network is 6 amplifier stations, all abandoned, all slave to a central coordination hub. Koi Station Gamma. We take out Gamma. The network goes deaf. And how? Nadia said. Do you propose a 6-person team, you, me, Mira in the shuttle, and Sable's 3 best shades take out an active military superweapon hub? Charm, Ethan said. I'm serious, Vale. So am I. They're not expecting us. They're expecting a Valkyrie fleet. We're a mixed signal, a glitch in the system. We're just there to adjust the volume. One of Sable's shades, a young Valkyrie with a sniper's cold eyes, was trembling. The song, the death song. I can feel it in the hull. The ship was groaning, the gravitic waves passing through them. Ethan leaned over, his voice low but clear. Hey, you ever been to Ganymede? The Valkyrie just stared at him. No terrible place, but they have these synthetic meat tacos. Tastes like, well, pure regret. But here's the thing. When you're in a situation like this, facing certain doom, you just have to think about the tacos. Nadia groaned, checking her rifle. Tacos. He's talking about tacos. Now, in the middle of a gravity wave attack. Precisely, Ethan said, his voice bright, false, and somehow grounding. Because this is epic. This is end-of-the-world stuff, but tacos. They're just food. Puts it all in perspective, doesn't it? Nobody wants their last thought to be, I wonder if that human was right about the tacos. It's bad for morale. We have a job to do, Sable. How close? He is strangely not wrong. Sable's voice came from the cockpit. My morale is confused, but I am also hungry. Docking with Koigama, now. The Spectre slammed into the side of the abandoned station, its magnetic clamps biting into the hull. This was a place of shadows. An old, forgotten research post, now the heart of Rourke's war. Kara, on the bridge of the Indomitable, was fighting a shadow. Her ships were faster, more agile, but Rourke's weapon was everywhere. Damage report, she snapped. 42% of the fleet is unresponsive. Empress, crushed or disabled. We cannot fight this pressure. She watched another of her ships die. A cold, pure, and utterly logical rage filled her. This was not war. This was pest control. And Rourke was the exterminator. On her bridge, in the traitor's pen. Dravak watched the same screen. He was silent. He saw his world. The world he had tried to purify, being annihilated. This, Kara said, her voice a low, venomous whisper, is your masterpiece, Dravak. This is the ally you brought, the purity of Helios. They betrayed me, Dravak whispered, his one red eye dim. They promised control, not this. You betrayed your Empress. You betrayed your people, for your pride. Kara was at her breaking point. The loss, the humiliation, the sheer unfairness of it. She strode to the pen, drawing her ceremonial sidearm, a long, keen-edged blade. The old law is clear on the punishment for this level of treason. She raised the blade, the light of the dying stars glittering on its edge. She would execute him, here, now. It was her right. Empress, do not. The voice was his, Dravak's. He was looking at the blade, not with fear, but with acceptance. Do it. It is just... Empress. Lovely day for a liberation, isn't it? Ethan's voice, crackling over a private, encrypted channel, shattered the moment. Kara froze, the blade an inch from Dravak's throat. Vale, where are you? Inside Koigama, about to do something very stupid. Just a heads up, don't execute your star witness. We need Dravak, alive, his testimony, his knowledge of the Helios deal. He's the only living thing that links Rourke to all of this. He's our proof. Don't smudge the evidence. Her hand was trembling, not with rage, but with the sudden, jarring return to strategy. He was right. He was infuriatingly, logically, and tactically right. She looked at Dravak, her eyes full of disgust so profound it was almost a pity. She sheathed the blade. You will not die, Dravak, she hissed. Not yet. You will live to see me save the world you doomed. And then, you will testify. Dravak slumped. The execution he craved, denied. He was a prisoner. He was evidence. Koi Station Gamma was not designed for a fight. It was a laboratory. The central core was a massive, resonant chamber, and in its center, a huge, black, flawless crystal, pulsed with a dark, 32.7 Hz thrum. That's it, Ethan yelled over the alarms. The choir mistress. It's amplifying the signal from Rourke's flagship and broadcasting it to the other 6. We're not alone, Sable said, her rifle up. Terran Marines, dressed in heavy, black void armor. Helios funded, they opened fire. Nadia Sable, buy me time, Ethan yelled, sprinting toward the crystal. Time for what? Nadia shouted, returning fire, her plasma bolts sizzling against the Terran's kinetic shields. For the blasphemy, Ethan roared. He reached the main console. He was not a soldier. He was a scholar. He was a strategist. And he was about to defile a superweapon. He ripped the casing from the console, exposing the interface. He slammed his own, smoking, repaired Skinfield device version 2 onto the port. "Mira, are you patched?" he yelled into his comm. "I am," Mira's voice was thin. "Ethan, this is the theory that if you do this, you could overload the entire network. You could—" "I know reversing the polarity now, Mira." "Reversing, Ethan. It's not a shield. It's an emitter. It won't block the waves." "Exactly," Ethan yelled, as a shot from Nadia's rifle vaporized a Marine just feet from him. "It doesn't need to block it. It needs to catch it. It needs to broadcast it. Turn this amplifier into a buffer. Do it." "This is clinically insane," Mira screamed. "Welcome to the team," Ethan bellowed, and he slammed his fist on the activator. The Skinfield device, designed to protect a single human hand, was force-fed into the heart of a stellar-class gravitic weapon. The thrumming stopped. The deep, 32.7 Hz groan that was crushing the Valkyrie fleet died, and was replaced by a high, clear, soaring C-sharp, 1, perfect, resonant tone. On the resolve, Rourke's tactical officer's blood ran cold. "Sir, the network, it's not responding. The Koi wave has collapsed." "What?" Rourke stood. "Bring it back online." "We can't, sir. It's broadcasting a new signal, a counter-frequency. It's blue." On the surface of Targus Prime, the civilians cowering in the shelters, waiting for the end, looked up. The black, oily ripples of death in the sky were gone. In their place, a shimmering, pale blue-gold aurora began to form. It started over the city and spread. The Skinfield, broadcast, amplified, and stabilized by the Koi network, was not a shield. It was a bubble. It was not stopping the gravitic waves Rourke's ships were still frantically pumping out. It was catching them. It was resonating with them, absorbing their kinetic, crushing potential, and harmlessly dispersing it as light. The weapon had become the shield. The pressure was gone. Rourke's humanitarian mission, broadcast live, was now actively and visibly protecting the people he was claiming to liberate. His sword had been turned into a plowshare in the most humiliating, public way possible. "We were free," Kara's tactical officer whispered. "The fleet. The pressure is gone." Kara's eyes were fixed on the blue aurora, on his signal. "All ships," she commanded, her voice pure iron. "The plague is gone. The prey is now the hunter. Fire at will." The Valkyrie fleet, freed from the gravitic trap, surged forward. On Koi Gamma, the remaining Terran Marines, their superweapon not just neutralized, but inverted, threw down their arms. Ethan, his clothes smoking, his hair standing on end from the energy discharge, walked to the main console. He keyed the broadcast map. "Sable, put this on every channel." The full resonance map of the Koi network, the off switch, a gift from the human plague bearer. Across the planet, the Valkyrie, in their shelters, in their homes, saw the map. They saw the human, Ethan Vale, standing in the heart of the weapon that had been killing them, and they heard the clear, defiant, protective tone of the bubble shield. A low sound started in the Scarspire, a single roar, then another. It was no cry of fear. It was a cheer, a sound of triumph, a sound of gratitude, for a human, on the Resolve. Admiral Rourke Ashford watched his tactical display turn from green to red. The Valkyrie, enraged and freed, were tearing his liberation fleet apart. "All ships," he said, his voice a flat, dead monotone. "Tactical withdrawal. Jump to the rendezvous point." "Sir." "The population has proven hostile," Rourke said, his eyes burning. "The liberation has failed, but make no mistake." He looked at the screen, at the lingering image of Ethan Vale. "This is not over. We are the apex of this galaxy. We are the predators. We will not be denied our place at the top of the food chain. The Terran Fifth Fleet, what was left of it, tore holes in space and vanished. The bridge of the Indomitable was quiet. The cheering from the planet below was a distant, muted roar. Dravak was gone, led away to the brig, a living piece of evidence. Kara stood at the main viewport, watching the last FTL trace fade. Ethan, Nadia, and the team had been brought up from the station. Ethan walked toward her, his diplomatic uniform torn and blackened. The skinfield device on his arm was a melted, smoking ruin. "Well," he said, his voice hoarse. "He seems nice. Didn't even stay for the victory parade." Kara did not turn. She did not smile. "You saved my world, Ethan Vale." "We," he corrected, motioning to Nadia, who just grunted, and to the comm, where Mira and Sable were still chattering. "We saved it." "You gave my people a hero," Kara said, turning, her moon-colored eyes unreadable. "A human one. You gave them the keys to the Koi network. You won their hearts." "But not yours," he asked. "You have my gratitude," she said, the word precise, formal. "But Rourke is gone. He is a symptom. Helios is the disease. They are still out there. Dravak's testimony is not enough. You have not proven the link to Erebus. Not completely. You won the battle." Her gaze fell to the melted slag on his forearm. "But the war is not over. Your miracle is broken. The touch is gone. We are back to where we began, alone, together." The cheers from the city felt, suddenly, very far away. The ashes of the Koi Gamma battle had cooled, but the fire of the conflict had merely moved. Admiral Rourke Ashford, branded a rogue extremist by a nervous and divided Terran Union, had vanished into the uncharted territories. His reputation saved only by the fact that the Helios Directorate's media network was painting him as a hero who had escaped a xenotrap. The victory, however, was Kara's. And she, in a move that stunned her own traditionalist court, decided to press that advantage not with warships, but with words. The battle for Targus Prime was over. The battle for the soul of the galaxy was about to begin. She called for the Green Ground Conference, a name that resonated with the Valkyrie hope for new life. The location was not Targus Prime, nor was it anywhere near Terran space. It was New Accord, a joint colony moon that had been, until 3 months ago, a barren rock. Now, under the combined, frantic efforts of Valkyrie engineering and Terran bioforming, it was a nascent paradise, a neutral ground with breathable air, fledgling forests, and 2 pale, new moons, one green and one white, that hung in the sky as a symbol of a dual future. The conference hall was an architectural marvel, a blend of Valkyrie obsidian strength and Terran open-air design, a place of hard lines and living gardens. Delegates from a dozen systems had come, and Kara, in her opening address, did not speak of war. She spoke of connection. In the weeks since the battle, Dr. Mira Kouris and a team of Valkyrie's brightest, working from the data Ethan had literally burned into the Koi network, had not just rebuilt the skin field. They had perfected it. Kara, standing on the dais, unclipped a device from her belt. It was not a weapon. It was a simple, elegant gauntlet of silver-blue alloy. She slid it on. "For centuries," she said, her voice carrying across the silent hall, "my people have been defined by what we cannot do. We could not touch each other. We could not heal. We could not connect. This was our law, born of tragedy." She activated the gauntlet, a stable, shimmering, golden field, the color of her own skin, enveloped her hand. "Today, we propose a new law, the law of symbiosis." She walked to the Terran ambassador, the panicked, sidelined man Ethan had first arrived with. The ambassador flinched. "The Terran plague-bearer," Ethan Vale, she continued, showed us that what we saw as a curse could be a key. This skin field technology, which we are now calling the symbiosis shield, is stable, it is safe, and it is our gift, to our people and to yours. A bridge, a way to finally shake hands. She offered her shielded hand. The ambassador, trembling, reached out and, for the first time in history, a Terran official formally and safely touched a Valkyrie leader. A new age had begun, or so she hoped. Admiral Rourke Ashford had not been idle. He was not present, but his voice was everywhere. He, too, was broadcasting. His signal beamed from a hidden flagship, a ghost in the static. He was lobbying the xenophobic factions back home, his message slick and poisonous. They call it a symbiosis shield, Rourke's handsome, uniformed image said, his voice dripping with reasonable concern. I call it a weapon of bioinduction. How long, citizens of Terra, before this shield becomes a filter? How long before it reprograms our children? Makes us like them. Empress Kara has already turned our own diplomat, the traitor Vale, using this insidious technology. Now she offers it to you, as a gift. So did the Greeks, at Troy. He was brilliant. He was turning Kara's gift into a threat, her science into witchcraft. The Terran Union stalled, refusing to ratify the new Accord Treaty. The conference was deadlocked. Rourke, a hunted fugitive, was winning the information war. Ethan Vale stood on the balcony of his quarters, staring at the two new moons, green and white. They were not his moons. They were not the twin silver-blue moons of Targasso Prime, and they were not the single, pale moon of Erebus. It was the night before the final session of the deadlocked conference. The night before, everything would either come together or fly apart forever. On his right arm, he wore the new gauntlet, the Envoy model. It was sleek, black, and fused to the scarred tissue of his forearm. The prototype's molten ruin had been surgically removed, but the nerves had been damaged. This new gauntlet was not just a tool. It was his new hand. He could feel the faint, golden hum of its resting field. The mnemonic lattice was quiet. For weeks. It had been a storm of Data Rourke, Helios, Project Edenfall, the trial of Dravak who had confessed all, a broken warrior, the rebuilding of the Skinfield. But tonight, the lattice was heavy. It was showing him Erebus, not the data, not the waveforms. It showed him his mother, in the station's biolab, handing him a contraband sweet cake. She was smiling, her eyes bright with the thrill of discovery. The universe is a conversation, Ethan, she had told him, her voice a perfect, agonizing memory. You just have to be willing to listen, and to talk back. He felt the pull of it, the 15-year quest for revenge. It was a hollow, aching void in his chest. Rourke was still out there, the man who had signed the order, who had sacrificed 10,000 souls, including his mother's, for a corporate power play, the desire to hunt him, to find his flagship, to put a plasma bolt through his conniving, handsome face, was so strong it made his teeth ache. It was a simple, clean solution, blood for blood. He looked at the gauntlet, the symbol of connection. Rourke was a symptom. Helios was the disease. But the illness was this cycle, the need to strike back. Valkyrie had it. His own people had it. He thought of his mother. A conversation. Killing Rourke was not a conversation. It was a full stop. I'm not your avenger, Mom, he whispered to the two moons. I'm your legacy. He would not hunt Rourke. He would not give in to the simple, clean, and empty release of revenge. He would do something harder. He would break him. He would strip away his honor, his reputation, and his support. He would bring him to justice, not a grave. He closed his fist. The golden field flared. He was no longer in pain. He was for the first time in 15 years. Perfectly, terrifyingly, clear. The next morning, the hall was full, the air thick with tension. The conference was a failure. The delegates were preparing to leave. "I have one last address," Ethan Vale's voice said, and he walked onto the stage. He was not in his diplomatic uniform. He was in a simple, black Terran suit. On his right arm, the black gauntlet was unmistakable. "For weeks, we have debated. We have listened to words of hope and we have listened to shadows on the wall." In the Terran delegation, Rourke's allies looked smug. "Admiral Rourke Ashford, from his hidden fortress, has called me a traitor. He has called Empress Kara a deceiver. He has called this," he raised the gauntlet, "a plague." He walked to the center of the stage. "I am a Terran citizen. I am also the official envoy of the Valkyrie Dominion. I am a walking conflict of interest. And I am here to end this debate. I am invoking a precedent. The Oath Song. A duel of truth." The Valkyrie half of the room gasped. "But this is not a Valkyrie court, so I will use Terran terms. I am making a bet. I, Ethan Vale, formally accuse Admiral Rourke Ashford, an active officer of the Terran fleet, and the Helios Directorate, a Terran corporation, of conspiracy to commit genocide." A roar of outrage from the Terran delegation. "And here," Ethan said, his voice cutting through the noise, "is my wager." He turned to the stunned Terran ambassador. "I am staking my life, my honor, and my citizenship. Today, my colleague, Sable, will present evidence. If this evidence is found to be false, if it is insufficient, I will surrender myself to Terran custody to be tried for treason. I will give you Rourke's traitor." He turned to the Valkyrie. "But if the evidence is true, then the Terran Union must agree to the terms of the Green Ground Accord. They must agree to a full, joint investigation of Helios. And they must brand Rourke Ashford a fugitive, to be hunted by both our fleets. A joint extradition." He had just bet his entire life on a throw. He had boxed them in. If they refused, they looked guilty. If they agreed, they were bound by the outcome. The Terran ambassador, pale and sweating, looked at the Valkyrie, at the other delegates. He looked at the live, galactic-wide broadcast. "The Terran Union," the ambassador stammered, "agrees to witness this presentation of evidence. Let the oath be sung." Ethan nodded. "Sable. The song." Sable, in the control booth, smiled. For weeks, she had not been idle. She had been tunneling. Rourke and Helios thought their data was safe. They had forgotten she had the Koi resonance map. She had learned to listen to data in a new way. "My presentation," Sable's voice, cool and clear, filled the hall, "is titled Project Edenfall." The main screen lit up. "We all believed," Sable narrated, "that Helios and Rourke were simply trying to start a war for profit. We were wrong. They were impatient." A file appeared, a blueprint, a biological schematic. "This is the original touch plague," Sable said. The hall went dead silent. "And this," another file appeared, "is Project Edenfall, a Helios program, 15 years in the running, not just to frame the Valkyrie, but to improve the plague." The plan was laid bare, in cold, corporate memos. Helios was terrified that the Valkyrie, under Kara's leadership, were stabilizing. They were opening up. They were on the verge of developing the skin field themselves. A stable Valkyrie Dominion, one capable of trading, would not need to buy weapons. So, Helios decided to reset the market. Project Edenfall was a plan to synthesize a new, airborne version of the touch plague, Sable said, her voice shaking with controlled rage. Their plan was to release it on Targus Prime, to wipe out the uncooperative leadership Kara, Dravak, all of them, to create a power vacuum, which Admiral Rourke Ashford's Liberation Fleet would then stabilize. "This is slander," a Terran delegate shouted. "This is a projection," Sable said. "This is a log. This is the truth. They were going to kill billions and blame it on a tragic mutation." The final memo appeared. Phase 3 approval. Awaiting military escort for final payload. The signature at the bottom was clear, digital, encrypted, and authentic. Admiral Rourke Ashford. A very compelling story. The voice was not from the stage. It was from the back of the hall. The main doors hissed open, and there, flanked by 8 Terran Marines in gleaming, black combat armor, stood Admiral Rourke Ashford. He was in his dress-white uniform, his face a mask of calm, charming authority. "You," Ethan breathed. He had been so sure. "You," Rourke said, smiling, walking down the aisle. "You really are a plague. Are not you? You turn up everywhere." The hall was in chaos. Valkyrie were drawing weapons. Terrans were shouting. "Peace," Rourke said, holding up a hand. "I am here as a patriot. I received word of this performance. I could not let these lies stand." He reached the front, standing 20 feet from Ethan. "That," Rourke said, "is a fabrication, a deep fake. My signature is a forgery. A very good one, I'll admit, but a forgery." "It is authentic," Sable's voice declared. "Is it?" Rourke said. "Then where is the original data core? Where is the proof? Boy, you've shown us a copy. A presentation. Where is the thing itself?" Ethan pointed. "It is in the evidence console. Right there. On the dais. Encrypted." "Ah," Rourke said. He looked at the console. He looked at Ethan, and he smiled. "You think," Rourke said, "that humanity, my species, got to the top of the food chain by cooperating, by shaking hands." He was walking closer. "You want humanity to be strong, you must get your hands dirty. We are the apex. They, all of them." He waved a hand at the Valkyrie, at the other aliens. "They are the prey. That is the only law, the only truth. Your evidence is irrelevant. Your conference is a joke. We are the predators, and you are standing in the way of the hunt." He was close now, too close. "You're wrong, Admiral," Ethan said, his voice low. "Human strength is not about getting our hands dirty. It's about being willing to get them burned. We are strong because we connect. We're strong because we build bridges, not graves. You are not human strength, Admiral. You are just human fear." "Eloquent," Rourke sneered. "A lovely epitaph," Kara stood. "Admiral Rourke Ashford, by the dual authority of the Valkyrie Dominion and this Green Ground Accord, you are under arrest for." "For what?" Rourke laughed. "For winning." He looked at Ethan. "You should have stayed on Earth. Boy, you're too late." He tapped a device on his wrist. "The Helios Directorate is very thorough. They always provide a clean slate." He was not looking at Ethan. He was looking at the evidence console. A small, whining sound. The console exploded, but it was not a fire. It was a cloud. A swirling, black, shimmering vortex of nanobots. A disassembly swarm. It shot from the console, atomizing the data core, the dais, the air itself. It was a sphere of pure, technological death. People screamed. Guards opened fire, their plasma bolts passing harmlessly through the cloud as it expanded, vaporizing chairs, the floor, the podium. It was moving toward the crowd, toward Kara. Rourke was already walking away, his Marines forming a protective wedge, their rifles up. A regrettable technical failure, he recalled. The swarm was 10 feet wide, 20. Ethan did not run. He looked at the swarm. He looked at his gauntlet. "Sable," he roared into his comm. "The koi frequency. Now pump it into the gauntlet." "Ethan, no. It will do it." He ran toward the swarm. "For Erebus," he whispered. He plunged his gauntleted, black arm, the symbiosis shield, into the heart of the disassembly swarm. The pain was immediate. It was not heat. It was unmaking. The nanites began to tear his gauntlet apart at the molecular level. "Kesh!" he roared, the Valkyrie oath torn from his lips. The koi frequency hit. The high, clear, C-sharp, the note of pure protection. Ethan's gauntlet, instead of just shielding, became a magnet. It turned inside out, the shield becoming a containment field. He was not blocking the swarm. He was catching it. The black cloud stopped expanding. It wavered. It was being pulled, against its programming, into the golden, shimmering, impossibly strong bubble that was now his fist. He was roaring in agony, the metal of his gauntlet glowing white-hot, fusing to the flesh and bone of his arm. The nanites fighting back, tearing him apart as he was pulling them in. The black cloud shrank. It became a vortex, a tornado, all of it spiraling into his hand. With a final, terrible, soundless crunch, the swarm collapsed. It was gone, trapped, in his fist. The hall was silent. The only sound was Ethan's ragged, screaming breaths. He stood alone on the ruined dais, his right arm a molten, smoking, blackened ruin, but closed. He had held the line. He had saved the room. He had saved the evidence. In the back of the hall, Rourke Ashford had stopped. He was staring, his face, for the first time, not smug, not charming. It was blank, shocked. He had lost. His Marines were gone, fled. He was alone. He did what he always did. He reached for his sidearm, a kinetic pistol. He raised it, not at Ethan, at Kara. A final, spiteful act. Ethan moved, his body, screaming, broken, fueled by 15 years of rage and a single, newfound moment of clarity, crossed the hall in 3 bounds. He did not use a weapon. He hit Rourke with his left, human fist. The Admiral went down, his gun skittering across the floor. Ethan was on top of him, his knees pinning Rourke's chest. He picked up the pistol. He saw Rourke's face, stunned, terrified, mortal. This was the moment. The end of the hunt. The ghosts of Erebus were screaming in his ears. "Do it. End him. For your mother." He pressed the barrel of the pistol to Rourke's forehead. Rourke closed his eyes. Ethan's hand was shaking. He saw his mother's face. "The universe is a conversation." "No," Ethan snarled, the word of physical, tearing effort. He did not pull the trigger. With a deliberate, violent click, he engaged the safety. "You don't get a martyr's death," Ethan breathed, his voice a low, ragged whisper, his face inches from the Admiral's. He rolled off him, climbing to his feet, his ruined arm held at his side. "You get a prison cell," Ethan said, his voice rising, filling the hall. "You get a trial. You get justice." He kicked the pistol away. He stood over the defeated Admiral, a broken, smoking, victorious man. He looked at Kara. She was walking toward him, past the stunned delegates, her face a mask of awe and terror and a profound, shattering relief. "The evidence is secure," Ethan panted, raising his ruined fist, which still held the trapped, dead nanobot swarm. Kara stopped, just outside the 10-foot line. "The Helios Directorate," Kara announced, her voice ringing with a new, cold authority, "is now, by order of this joint accord, under full, interspecies investigation. All assets frozen." She looked at Rourke, who was being hauled to his feet by Valkyrie honor guards. "And the Admiral has just given his testimony." Ethan looked at his hand. He had won. He had won the war. He had won the peace, and he had won himself. He had chosen justice. And he had, finally, let the ghosts of Erebus rest. The galaxy held its breath. The Green Ground Accord had been signed, not in ink, but in the molten slag of Ethan Vale's right arm. The nanobot swarm he had captured was now contained in a gravitic stasis sphere, a silent, swirling black marble that represented the single, most potent piece of evidence in the cosmos. Rourke was in a Terran brig. Helios was in flames. The war was over. The hard part, the rebuilding, had just begun. New Accord, the moon that had served as the stage for the galaxy's fate, became the blueprint for its future. The central marketplace, a thriving hub of commerce, now had a new, experimental, and deeply awkward section, the Safe Touch Zone. It was Kara's idea, and Ethan had insisted on the signage. A young Terran tourist, part of the first wave of reintegration visitors, stood nervously before a Valkyrie honor guard. The guard, a 7-foot-tall woman in ceremonial armor, looked equally tense. Between them, a glowing holographic pylon displayed the rules. 1. Both parties must wear an active, low-amplitude symbiosis shield-type greeting. 2. Contact must be initiated by verbal consent. 3. Grasp firmly, but do not crush. 4. Do not panic. And, at the bottom, in bright, flashing letters that Ethan had personally coded. A mild tingling sensation is normal. Please do not punch your new acquaintance if it occurs. So, I verbally consent, the tourist, a young man named Tim, said, his voice squeaking. The Valkyrie guard, whose name was Vela, gave a curt nod. I also consent. Tim activated his rented shield glove. It shimmered with a pale blue light. Vela activated her own, a standard-issue golden field, slowly, like two defusing a bomb. They reached out. Their shielded hands met in the middle. Tim gasped. Whoa, it's warm. Vela, who had never felt the touch of another living being in her entire 30 years, found her stoic expression cracking. It is biothermically acceptable. A small, hesitant smile broke on her face. Tim smiled back. Hey, that wasn't so bad. It was efficient, Vela said, though she had not yet let go of his hand. All across the plaza, this clumsy, beautiful, and slightly static-filled miracle was repeating itself. Humans and Valkyrie, fumbling their way toward connection, one handshake at a time. It was awkward and strange, and utterly, profoundly, necessary. While New Accord was learning to touch, Targas Prime was learning to heal its honor. The Hall of Judgment was convened, but it was not the baying, bloodthirsty arena that had tried Ethan. It was somber, quiet, filled with the gravity of what had been broken. High Marshal Dravak stood on the dais. He wore no armor. He was in the simple, gray tunic of a penitent. His cybernetic eye had been removed, replaced by a simple, black patch. His ritual scars looked old and tired. He had confessed to everything: his treason, his complicity with Helios, his blind pride, his attempt to depose his Empress. The verdict was guilty. The sentence was death. Kara, on the Empress's throne, looked at the man who had been her father figure, her mentor, and her greatest enemy. High Marshal Dravak, she said, her voice clear, but not cold. You have heard the judgment. You have pleaded guilty to the highest crimes. You have forfeited your life. Do you have any last words? Dravak looked up, his one good eye finding hers. I do not, he said, his voice a low rumble. I ask for nothing. I deserve the end. But, he hesitated. Speak, Dravak, Kara said. My actions were born of a lie I wanted to believe, that we were pure, that we were strong alone. I was wrong. He looked at the floor. But the threat to the tenebrous corridor in the borderlands, the threat is still real. Helios is broken, but the predators, the scavengers who fed on their scraps, are still out there. Rourke's allies, the ones who took my family. He took a deep breath. I do not ask for mercy. I ask for a purpose. Do not execute me. Send me to the border. Let me stand the watch. Let me die protecting the people I failed. Let me atone. The court murmured. This was irregular. Kara was silent for a long time. She looked at the ancient laws inscribed on the wall. The old law. The old law, she said, her voice silencing the room, was built on two pillars, purity and restoration. We, in our fear, have forgotten the second. We have focused only on the purity, on the cutting away of what is unclean. She stood. High Marshal Dravak, your life is forfeit. It belongs to the state, and the state has a purpose for you. She did not look at him, but at the assembled court. He will be stripped of his title. He will be exiled to the tenebrous corridor. He will be given a single ship and a volunteer crew of those like him who have lost their honor and seek to reclaim it. He will guard the borderlands. He will be our first line of defense. He will atone. This is my judgment. It was perfect. It was justice, strategy, and compassion, all in one. Dravak first looked at peace. He dropped to one knee. My life for the Dominion, he whispered. Justice, on Targus Prime, was beginning to heal. While justice was being served, Ethan Vale was on a pilgrimage. The Terran Union, as part of the Accord, had granted him unrestricted access to the sealed, classified archives of Erebus Station. He was in a cold, dark, virtual reality archive, the data of his home station swirling around him. He walked through the holographic streets he remembered, past the synth noodle bar, past his school. His new arm was a marvel. It was not a gauntlet. It was a fully integrated, biomechanical limb. Valkyrie tech, human design. The symbiosis shield was built into it. No longer a weapon, no longer a defense, but a part of him. It looked like spun, black carbon fiber, and it hummed with a quiet, golden light. It was, he had to admit, extremely cool. He had spent weeks sifting through the military data, the tactical logs, the waveforms, finding the last, damning pieces of the puzzle that would put Rourke and Helios away for centuries. But today, he was no strategist. He was a son. He accessed the personal logs. Sector 4, Biolab. Vale, Alana, personal. His mother appeared, a life-sized hologram, sitting on her lab bench, smiling at him. Log entry, whatever it is, she laughed. Ethan, if you ever get this, you're probably sorting my data for some high-level historical archive. Knowing you, you probably have an impressive title and a heavy brow. Ethan's left hand went to his brow. He was frowning. He smiled. I just wanted to... I don't know, she continued, her smile fading. Just a little. This project, this Edenfall stuff, it's making the brass nervous. It's making me nervous. It's not good talk. Ethan, it's all us versus them. It's all fear. She leaned in, her eyes, his eyes, looking right at him. Don't let that be your world, honey. I know what they did to your father's memory. I know how this hate feels. It's a chain. It feels like strength, but it's just a chain. Don't let your pain become your chains. You're better than that. You're a bridge builder, Ethan. You always were. She blew him a kiss. End log. The hologram vanished. Ethan stood in the dark, tears rolling freely down his face. He felt light. The 15-year wait, the hollow, aching void of his quest. It was gone. He held up his new, black arm, the golden field activated. A bridge builder, he whispered. Okay, Mom. Okay, I will. He found Kara in the newly commissioned Hall of Connection on New Accord. It was a university, still under construction. It's a working title, she said, without turning. She was looking at a set of blueprints. It's a terrible title, Ethan said, walking up beside her. I know. You'll think of a better one. That's why I sent for you. You sent it to me. She finally turned. Her eyes scanned his new arm. It is good. The fusion is stable. The fusion is good, he agreed. So, this Connection Academy. What's the curriculum? Shaking Hands 101. Something like that, she said, a small smile playing on her lips. And xenolinguistics, gravitic engineering, nonverbal threat assessment, a place where our people can learn to be bridge builders. She looked at him. We need a dean, a director, someone who understands both sides, someone who has experience in the field. I'm flattered, Empress, Ethan said. But I'm a diplomat, a strategist. I'm not an academic. No, she agreed. You're not. You're something else, which is why your new title will be Envoy Protector. Ethan blinked. Envoy Protector. That sounds alarmingly important. And like a lot of paperwork. It is, she said. You will be the first joint envoy, with full authority in both the Terran Union and the Valkyrie Dominion. You will answer only to me, and to your own conscience. This was it. Not just a job, a life, a home. I accept, he said. Good, she said, turning back to the blueprints. Now, about the curriculum. Your suggestion of adding advanced sarcasm as a diplomatic tool is under review. It's essential, Ethan said, straight-faced. It's the core of human strength. She almost laughed. The galaxy was rebuilding. The symbiosis shield, as it was now known, was the single hottest commodity on the market. But Kara and Ethan had not sold it. They had licensed it, for free, for use in medicine, and, surprisingly, environmental recovery. On a small, war-torn moon that had been one of Helios's first test sites. A joint Terran-Valkyrie science team, led by a newly promoted Dr. Mira Kuris, was walking through a blackened, scarred forest. The soil is dead, Mira said, kneeling, her shield glove activated. The nanites from the bioweapon just shredded the microbes. Nothing will grow here for 1,000 years. Perhaps, said her Valkyrie counterpart, a tall, grim botanist. But the touch is not just for people. He knelt beside her. He, too, wore a shield, but his was calibrated differently. He pressed his hand to the blackened earth. It was not a handshake. It was a transfusion, a low, bioelectric hum. He was touching the soil, using the shield as a filter, a microdialysis, cleansing the dirt at a microbial level. It's slow, Mira said, watching her scanner. But by the gods, it's working. We cannot unmake the past, the Valkyrie said. But we can touch the future. We can heal the ground. The technology of abstinence had become the technology of healing. The news, for the first time in a generation, was good. Admiral Rourke Ashford had been convicted of all charges. His final words, as he was led from the Terran High Court, were not a plea. They were cursed. You are fools. You are prey. The galaxy, it seemed, had decided to be fools. The Helios Directorate was shattered. Its assets were seized. Its executives were in hiding. And its Project Edenfall data was now the primary textbook for what not to do at every military ethics academy in the sector. Captain Nadia Brooks, now Colonel Nadia Brooks, was the new head of the Joint Accord Security Force. She gave a press conference. It was short. The operation, she said, her face a mask of iron, is ongoing. We will find them. We will bring them to justice. That is all. The Terran public, divided at first, was changing. The image of Ethan, his arm molten, holding back the nanite swarm, had done more to change public opinion than 1,000 treaties. It was heroic. It was, as the news nets were calling it, the new face of humanity. Not a predator, a protector. That night, on New Accord, The two new moons, the green and the white, shone brightly. Ethan stood on the balcony of their quarters. Kara walked out, joining him. She was not in armor. She was in a simple, black tunic. "Colonel Brooks," Ethan said, "is terrifying. I'm a little in love with her." "She is effective," Kara said. "She has already persuaded two systems to sign the No Data Deception Treaty." "Good," Ethan said. "A green corridor of worlds. All of them agreeing not to lie to each other. It's a start." They stood in silence, looking at the two moons. "Your arm," she said. "It does it." "It's good," he said, holding up the black, biomechanical limb. "It's me. It's a little strange. I can feel the field, even when it's off. The Valkyrie doctors said it is now part of your neural signature." "It's part of the lattice," he agreed. A silence. The new, comfortable silence of two people who had been through a war and were now in peace. "Kara," Ethan said. "Yes," he turned to her. "I am activating my shield." The golden field shimmered to life over his black arm. She looked at him, a long, slow, considering look. "I am activating mine," she said. Her own, matching, silver-blue gauntlet, the one she wore as Empress, shimmered with its own golden field. He held out his hand. She did not take his hand. She stepped inside the 10-foot line. She stepped inside the 5-foot line. She stepped close. She laid her shielded hand on his chest, on his heart. His hand, his new hand, was shaking. He laid it on her shoulder. And then, for the first time, they embraced. It was not the desperate, clinging embrace of two lovers. It was something else. It was the firm, solid, grounding pressure of two pillars. Finally, touching, shield to shield, energy to energy. He could feel the warmth of her, through the field. He could feel the steady beat of her heart. She could feel the strength in his arm, the hum of the lattice, the solid, unshakable presence of him. "This," she whispered into his shoulder, "is acceptable." "It's more than acceptable," he murmured, his eyes closing. It was a handshake. Not of hands. It was the handshake of two civilizations. And it was a promise that they would, together, touch the future and heal it. The ceremony was held under the twin moons of New Accord, the green and the white. It was not a victory celebration, but survival. The Mirrored Skin Treaty was its official name, a poetic compromise from a committee of diplomats. The centerpiece of the plaza was a towering sculpture of two stylized hands, one of black Terran carbon fiber, one of silver-blue Valkyrie alloy, their palms open, their skin-field gauntlets intertwined, their energy fields merging into a single, golden aura. Ethan Vale stood at the podium. He was not a diplomat tonight. He was not the envoy protector. He was a symbol. His new black arm, gleaming in the moonlight, was a mirror of the sculpture behind him. He looked out at the assembled crowd, Terran, Valkyrie, and a dozen other species, all standing together, all breathing the same air. "There is a human myth," he began, his voice amplified, clear and steady. "A very old one, that we are the apex, that we are the predators. Our strength comes from our rage, our ability to get our hands dirty, to do what must be done, to stand alone, at the top of the food chain." He looked at the sea of faces. Admiral Rourke Ashford believed that. The Helios Directorate believed that. And for 15 years I believed it, too. I believed my strength was in my pain. My strength was in my hunt for vengeance. He raised his left hand, his human hand. I was wrong. He then raised his right hand, his new, black, Valkyrie-made arm, and the golden symbiosis shield shimmered to life. Our human strength is not that we are predators. It's that we, alone, are so desperate for connection that we will risk everything for it. We will cross the void. We will break the laws of physics. We will even touch the untouchable. His eyes found Kara, standing in the front row, not in her armor, but in the simple, black robes of a leader. "We are not strong because we stand alone," he said, his voice ringing with a power that was not his, but was theirs. "We are strong because we dared to trust. We are strong because we dared to build. And we are strongest when we dare heal, not just ourselves, but each other." He finished. The silence was absolute. And then, the cheer. It was not a Valkyrie roar, or a Terran shout. It was a new sound, a hybrid, a song of two worlds, finding a new key. The following weeks were a blur of integration. The Connection Academy was thriving, its classrooms filled with awkward, fumbling, brilliant students. Ethan, as the new envoy protector, found himself in the position he had always dreaded, an administrator. His main project was merging the archives. He was in his office, late, the two moons painting his desk. He was cross-referencing the Erebus station logs of his mother's final, haunting entries, with the newly opened Valkyrie Royal Archives. It was housekeeping. He was trying to build a definitive timeline for the Erebus incident, as the historians were now calling it. His mnemonic lattice was humming. It did that when it found a pattern he had not. "Computer," he said, "show me my mother's final log. Project Edenfall. Date stardate 47.3. His mother's face appeared on the screen, her voice full of fear. "It's not a good conversation, Ethan. It's all us versus them. It's all fear." "Now," Ethan said, "show me Valkyrie Royal Archive. Tenebris Border Patrol. Same date." The screen split. A new file appeared. It was a Valkyrie military log. Dry. Tactical. "Patrol 4 Alpha." A flat, female voice read, "Shield Maiden Kara Thal reporting." Ethan froze. He had seen the file a dozen times, but he had never put them side by side. "Shield Maiden Kara Thal reporting. Terran Project Edenfall confirmed. The weapon is active. The signal is a lie. It is a false flag. It is Helios." Ethan's blood turned to ice. Continue log," he whispered. "The station Erebus is the target." Kara's voice, younger, colder, but unmistakably hers, continued. "They are testing the Edenfall neural signature. They will blame us. The High Council is complicit." "No," Ethan breathed, his mind reeling. "No, the High Council Dravak. The High Council, under pressure from Helios, has allowed this. They will sacrifice the station to frame the dissidents. My patrol is ordered to observe and withdraw." The log continued. "I am defying the order. I am taking my ship. I am going in. I will save someone." The screen filled with static, with the screams from Erebus. And then another file, a visual log. It was the bridge of a small Valkyrie ship, shaking, alarms blaring. And in the captain's chair, a teenage girl. Her hair was shorn short for battle. Her face was a mask of furious, terrified tears. It was Kara. She was 16 years old. "I have 12 survivors," she yelled at her tactical officer. 12. Out of 10,000. Get them to the escape pod. The one with the false Terran signature, get them out. We cannot be seen." "Shield Maiden," her officer yelled. "The fleet of Rourke's Terran fleet is here. They are locking weapons. They are broadcasting that we did this." The young Kara, the girl, her face changed. The tears stopped. The fear vanished. It was the face he had seen in the Spireport. The face of the Empress. Cold, hard, a mask of iron. Rourke, he is part of it," she whispered, her voice dead. "They are all part of it. The lie is complete." She looked at the screen, at the burning ruins of Erebus, at the arriving Terran rescue fleet. "This is the truth," she said, her voice the cold of deep space. "If this truth is known, Terra will unite. Against us. They will exterminate us. They will believe Rourke's lie. They will have their war." She took a deep breath. "The survivors are gone. The log is sealed. The patrol never happened. From this day forward, we are monsters. We are the cold ones. We are the law." She looked at her tactical officer. Enact the great law of abstinence. All protocols. Full purity." "Shield Maiden," the officer gasped. "That is madness. That is ancient. It will choke us." "It will save us," the young Kara hissed, her eyes black with the horror of her choice. "It will make us unapproachable. It will build a wall around our people that Helios cannot reach. It is the only way. They want a monster. I will give them one." The log ended. Ethan was on his knees. His mnemonic lattice was not a gift. It was a curse. It was replaying the log, his mother's log, Kara's log, all at once. It was not a Valkyrie massacre. It was a Helios massacre. And Rourke had been the cleanup crew. The one who came in to save the day and blame the Valkyrie. And Kara. She had been there. She had tried to save them. And the law of abstinence, the great law, the thing that had defined her, that had tortured her people, was not an ancient tradition. It was a lie. It was a desperate, brilliant, agonizing piece of political strategy invented by a 16-year-old girl to save her species from an unjust, genocidal war. She had sacrificed her heart, her honor, her entire culture just to keep her people alive. She had let him hate her for 15 years. She had carried his pain and hers. Ethan Vale, the envoy protector, the bridge builder, the man who had seen it all, was broken. He was remade. He was drowning. The 15 years of rage, hatred, and his quest for vengeance did not evaporate. It imploded. It collapsed into a single, dense, white-hot point of understanding. He was not grieving. He was in awe. He found her in the garden, under the 2 moons. She knew. The moment she saw his face, she knew. "You saw the archives," she whispered. He did not. He did not speak. He walked toward her, and for the second time in his life, he kneeled. He dropped to one knee, at her feet, his new, black arm, her technology, his salvation hanging at his side. He was weeping. Not for his mother. Not for Erebus. He was weeping for her, for the girl in that chair. "I did not know," he choked. "I hate you. I. She looked down at him. Her face was crumbling. Then the iron was gone. She trembled, and she reached. She did not activate her shield. Her bare hand. She touched his hair. The plague. The curse. The law. It was broken. She touched him. "Get up," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Get up, Ethan." She pulled. He rose. He stood. He looked at her. "We are equals," she said, her hand still on his face. "We are survivors. We are partners." He covered her hand with his human hand. Skin to skin. No sparks. No electricity. Just warmth. Just peace. The full story was released. To both worlds. The shock was profound. The healing was deeper. The extremist factions on both sides, the human first, the Valkyrie pure, they did not just lose power, they evaporated. How can you hate a people who sacrifice their entire culture to save you from yourselves? How can you fear a person who chose to heal you after all that? The galaxy changed. A message came from the Tenebrous corridor, from a single ship. It was Dravak. He had heard the news. He had learned the truth. His message was short. My Empress, it read. I am unworthy, but my life is yours. This is the green corridor. This new truth I will protect. I swear. My honor is restored in service. My life for the corridor. The circle was closed. The Connection Academy was renamed. It became the Symphony Council, a new government. Not one empress, not one envoy, but a dual leadership. A song, Kara had called it. Hard power and soft, the shield and the hand. She had offered him the seat. Co-regent, he laughed. I am not a king, Kara. No, she smiled. You are worse. You are a committee leader. But yes, you will sit with me. I accept, he said. But I keep my title, Envoy Protector. And I keep my ship, the Spectre. I am still a shadow. I am still needed in the dark places. Of course, she said. My shadow, my shield, my bridge. The final scene. Months later. The celebration. The true one. The anniversary of the Accord. They stood on the balcony on New Accord. The two moons are shining. The party was loud behind them. He was in his dress uniform. She was in her royal gowns. They were tired. They were happy. She leaned her head on his shoulder. He's his real one. Skin to skin. It is a good night, she murmured. It is. He agreed. A long silence. He smiled. Just one thing, he said. Yes. Next time we meet for the first time, let's not touch the spire port. It is so much paperwork. She laughed. A real laugh. A warm laugh. She looked up at him, her moon eyes shining. I promise, she said. She tilted her head. After the ceremony, she smiled. He smiled. Fade out.